and good afternoon. My name is Scott Eisner. I'm the president of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce's Africa Business Center. Before I begin my formal remarks today, I'd like to recognize the Honorable Dr. Isa Ali Ibrahim, Nigerian Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, the Honorable Karen Dunkelley, Deputy Secretary of Commerce at the Department of Commerce, Mary Beth Leonard, U.S. Ambassador to Nigeria, and I'd like to thank all of our esteemed guests for joining us today, and all protocols are observed. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome you all to this virtual edition of the U.S.-Nigeria Digital Economy Conference. In just a moment, I'll briefly talk about the Chamber's work in Africa, highlight our engagement on the digital economy, and preview today's discussion. Before I do that, I want to thank our sponsors and partners, our platinum sponsors, IBM, Zenith Bank, IHS Towers, and Niateo Group, our gold sponsors, Google, Chevron, American Tower Corporation, and Oracle, and our technical partners, the American Business Council of Nigeria, NITDA, Cisco, and Hewlett-Packard. A special thanks to Dr. Gavera Yao and Kristen Folkers from the Chamber for their tireless work putting together today's event. And thank you to Margaret Olele, one of the best AmCham leaders we have. I also want to thank the U.S. Department of Commerce, U.S. Embassy in Nigeria, and to acknowledge with deep gratitude the collaboration we've had with the Federal Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, which made this event possible. The U.S. Chamber is the foremost leader driving trade and investment between the U.S. and Africa. We represent over 3 million members across the world and have over 118 American chambers of commerce worldwide. We've been active on the continent for over a decade and really have dedicated our resources to making sure that more and more American companies can find their way into the market with a soft landing and find partnerships that are so much desired on the African continent. In fact, earlier this year in February, which does seem like 10 years ago, the Chamber hosted the U.S.-Nigeria Commercial and Investment Dialogue in Washington, D.C., alongside one of our speakers today, the Honorable Karen Dunkelley, to promote a collaborative efforts between policymakers and the private sector on key areas, including the digital economy. I want to note that this event takes place on the theme Enabling the Growth of the Nigeria's Digital Economy. At the Chamber, we recognize that innovation and strong ICT market is a critical component of global competitiveness that often enables other industrial sectors to thrive. The novel coronavirus is accelerating digital transformation at a rate we've never seen, underscoring the need to harness the digital economy as a driver for growth and innovation. The global digital economy is projected at $23 trillion by 2025, representing 24.3% of the world GDP. And in Africa, the contribution of the digital economy to Africa's economy is estimated at $180 billion by 2025 and posed to grow to $712 billion by 2050. In Nigeria, the ICT sector contributes more than 13.85% to the country's GDP and is expected to expand in the coming year. The potential for the sector can be further boosted if the increased effort to curb cybercrime, which cost the government 75 billion naira a year, or $195 million. In November last year, the government of Nigeria unveiled its digital economy policy and strategy anchored on 8 pillars to accelerate the country's digital transformation. By 2030, the government of Nigeria plans to facilitate greater access to the digital economy and create 100 million jobs. To meet this bold objective, the country needs to increase the investment in digital infrastructure, create an enabling regulatory environment for the digital economy, and pursue radical reforms to improve skills and workforce development. This event is timely because it takes place in the context in which global challenges posed by COVID-19 pandemic and the rapid digital transformation require us to work together across government, industry, academia, and innovators to draw upon global knowledge, expertise, creativity that exists to discuss emerging political policy implications. The implementation of the historic African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement by January next year, Africa is posed to unite a 1.3 billion person market and a combined GDP of $2.6 trillion and pave the way towards harmonization of policies and greater regional integration. At the Chamber, we're committed to supporting businesses of all sizes thrive and to ensure member companies see Nigeria and Africa as a favorable investment destination. Today, we plan to engage you in a conversation on how to foster policy dialogue on the Nigerian digital economy. You're going to hear 3 vibrant and complementary panel discussions on the following themes. First, it's an ministerial panel focusing on enabling skills and workforce development to drive Nigeria's digital transformation. Then there'll be 2 parallel panels, one focused on enabling connectivity through trade, and one enabling effective cybersecurity to strengthen Nigeria's digital ecosystem. You'll hear from policy experts and business executives on how to spur greater collaboration between government, business, and other partners to ensure that digital dividends can be attained for the benefit of all. During the conference, we'll also showcase the creativity and innovation of the Nigerian youth by unveiling the top 3 winners of the U.S. Chamber Zenith Bank Digital Entrepreneurship Competition that was organized for Nigerian startups, so stay tuned. I'd now like to introduce the Honorable Karen Dunkelley, the U.S. Deputy Secretary of Commerce. Deputy Secretary Kelly is the department's chief operations officer and day-to-day manager of a budget of $11.4 billion, 12 operating units, and about 47,000 employees. She's also a member of the President's Management Council. She has over 35 years of experience in the financial investment sector. Before joining the U.S. Department of Commerce, Ms. Kelly served as Senior Managing Director of Investment at Invesco, a U.S.-based investment firm that manages more than $800 billion in assets worldwide. Deputy Secretary Kelly is committed to empowering the youth. She's committed to expanding ties between the United States and Nigeria, and she's committed to this platform today. So thank you all for spending time with us today, and I'd now like to hand the floor over to Deputy Secretary Kelly.
You can hear me. I would also very much like to thank Nigerian's Minister for Communication and Digital Economy, Dr. Ali Isa Ibrahim Patami, and our U.S. Ambassador to Nigeria, Mary Beth Leonard, who are really both taking this call from over across the Atlantic. So we appreciate you participating today. And I hope that everybody on this call has stayed safe and healthy during these very unusual times. And I am so grateful to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce for finding a way to safely host today's incredibly important conference. The United States government is deeply committed to growing the trade and investment ties between the United States and Nigeria, as well as the entire African continent. In December 2018, President Trump reaffirmed the commitment when he designated that strengthening of commercial ties between the U.S. and African nation was the very first pillar of his African strategy. And then 6 months later, I had the true privilege of traveling to Mozambique to announce the Trump administration's Prosper Africa initiative, which formalized a whole of government approach to increasing bilateral trade ties. When you consider that Nigeria accounts for 20% of Africa's entire continental GDP, it is home to more than 200 million people. It is obvious that you cannot have Prosper Africa without prosper Nigeria. Nigeria is a critical strategic partner of the United States, and its success is fundamental to the region. With this in mind, Secretary Wilbur Ross established the U.S.-Nigerian Commercial and Investment Dialogue in 2017. This past February, I was honored to co-host the dialogue's first ever ministerial meeting with Nigerian Minister of Industry, Trade, and Investment, Richard Adebayo. The Commercial and Investment Dialogue established 5 areas of focus. One of those areas was the digital economy, the exact topic of today's conference. The World Bank estimates that by the year 2030, the digital economy will account for 25.5% of all global economic activity. Nigeria is particularly poised to take advantage of this growth. The number of internet users in the sub-Saharan Africa grows faster than anywhere else in the entire world. We are already seeing substantial growth in digital entrepreneurship in Nigerian cities such as Port Harcourt and Abuja, as well as Lagos, one of the fastest growing cities in the planet, while remaining a hub of innovation and investment for years to come. Accelerating this growth in Nigeria's digital economy will require continued collaboration between the public and the private sectors. And events like the February ministerial and today's conference serve as critical forums to strengthen this collaboration going forward. During today's sessions, you will hear how Americans and Nigerians are working together and making progress on goals such as 1, promoting the free flow of data across borders. 2, improving regulatory transparencies. 3, developing a highly skilled workforce. And finally, securing technological infrastructures by relying on trusted vendors as well as strong cybersecurity practices. I, too, would like to congratulate the 112 applicants to this year's digital entrepreneurship competition, which was sponsored by Zenith Bank and the U.S. Chamber. These 112 innovators came up with digital solutions to new problems facing Nigerian citizens as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. We will learn the winners of these competitions later in the program, but the creativity, the drive that was demonstrated by so many applicants is a true cause for celebration. It is a real indicator of the ability of the digital entrepreneurship to not only improve the quality of life of Nigerians, but also help strengthen the ties between American and Nigerian businesses. I want to personally thank each of you for participating in this incredibly important dialogue today between our two nations. And I also want to wish you a happy and healthy holiday season, and that you find safe ways to connect with loved ones during these unique times. Thank you and enjoy the conference.
Thank you so much, Deputy Secretary Dunkelley. Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen Folkerts, and I'm with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce's U.S. Africa Business Center. We are so excited to have you here today. Here are some key features inside of the FeedLoop platform that we want to highlight to help you all interact with each other and the speakers throughout this important event. First, use the chat bar to the right of your screen to drop your comments and questions, particularly during our panel sessions as part of Q&A. We'll make sure to pass them along to our speakers and answer as best and as fast as we can. Second, click on anyone's profile in FeedLoop to start a private message with them and network. Please note that some of our speakers or attendees may not be online or are private, so just because you message them doesn't necessarily mean that they'll be able to respond. Third, you can move between the lobby, sessions, and the networking module at any point during the event. Regarding networking, click on the networking tab to view all of the attendees and speakers at this event and network with them via private message or via group chat. Scroll down to view the speakers and the event agenda. Please note that the event agenda is also available as an announcement in the lobby. Lastly, you will see multiple events listed under our sessions. If you have any issues whatsoever, let us know in the chat or email our help desk support at digitaleconomynigeria2020@gmail.com. Next, we'll see a video from one of our platinum sponsors of this conference, IHS Towers. This will be followed by introductory remarks of our keynote speech by Mr. Mohammed Darwish, Chief Executive Officer of IHS Towers Nigeria and a board member of the U.S. Africa Business Center at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much and enjoy.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon and good evening, wherever you may be in the world. My name is Mohammed Darwish. I'm the CEO of IHS Towers in Nigeria, one of the leading independent telecommunications infrastructure providers in the country and indeed Africa. I wish to thank the wonderful team at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, especially Myron, Scott, Guevara, Brion, Kristen, and their colleagues for organizing these important fora, not only here in Nigeria, but also the ones that have happened before. Globally, we see that a fundamental key to industrial growth and development is good leadership. And this is no different for the ICT sector. Vision, political will, and execution are interwoven. These are hallmarks of good leadership and are to be found in our keynote speaker today. And when these are present with sound economic policies, they attract investment, returns, prosperity, and growth within the ICT sector, which ultimately will have a positive impact on Nigeria as a whole. This morning, I have the distinct honor to introduce today's keynote speaker, a leader and champion of the ICT sector, like no other, Dr. Isa Ali Pantami, the Honorable Minister of Communications and Digital Economy of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Dr. Pantami is a prime example of the talent, leadership, and excellence that the Nigerian education system is capable of nurturing for its own benefit and the world's. He's a graduate of computer science from the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University in Bauchi, Nigeria, after which he completed his PhD at Robert Gordon University in Aberdeen, Scotland. Dr. Pantami has also remained a diligent pursuer of knowledge in information technology, digital transformation, and management, attending various trainings at elite schools such as Harvard University, MIT, and Cambridge University. He's also a fellow of both the Nigerian and British computer societies. Dr. Pantami lectured at Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University in information technology, as well as other international universities. In 2016, in recognition of his capabilities, the Nigerian government appointed him to serve as the Director General CEO of the National Information Technology Development Agency, NIDA. And since then, he has been the recipient of over 100 awards and recognitions for his efforts and achievements, both within and outside Nigeria. Following his appointment as the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy in June 2019, Dr. Pantami oversaw the development and the national development of the national digital economic policy and the strategy, as well as the National Broadband Plan for 2020-2025, both of which have clear objectives, pillars, and targets for achieving a digital economy in Nigeria. He has also emerged as an advocate for improving the enabling environment for the ICT sector at the subnational level. He's also a devoted husband and father, author, and learned scholar in his faith, who has been greatly tested and whose family we are all keeping in our thoughts and prayers today. It's my pleasure to introduce to you for his keynote address entitled Harnessing the Nigerian Digital Economy, the Honorable Minister of Communications and Digital Economy for Nigeria, Dr. Isa Ali Pantami.
Hi, Minister. Can you please unmute your mic?
Excuse me. The U.S. Ambassador to Nigeria, Ambassador Mary Leonard, the President of the U.S. Africa Business Center and U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Scott Esner, the Deputy Secretary of Commerce, United States of America, my colleagues, other CEOs here, the DG NITDA, EVC, NCC, DG NOTAP, and NIPC, CEO, all other protocols duly and respectfully observe. Good afternoon, and may peace, mercy, and blessings be upon you. I am highly delighted to be here with you virtually, to be part of this conference, which has been entitled as United States and Nigeria Digital Economy Conference, organized by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. This is very commendable, and on behalf of the federal government of Nigeria, we are thankful to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce for organizing this event, and also we are thankful to all other partners who supported this conference to make it a real one. We are most appreciative on behalf of the federal government of our country. Furthermore, I'm also thankful for being given the opportunity to serve as the keynote speaker of today's conference. And I'm also delighted that this conference came up at the right time, that we are driving digital economy in our country in order to achieve a digital Nigeria. I will not repeat what had been said by most of our colleagues here, except where absolutely necessary. So I don't need to emphasize on the position of our digital economy globally. The previous colleagues who spoke earlier mentioned why digital economy is important according to the World Bank and many more. In addition, going through the sayings and the statements of Oxford Economics, World Economic Forum, and many more, we will be convinced that digital economy is arguably the most important economy we have today globally. It is because of this, when I was appointed as a minister, and on 21st August 2019, our boss, President Muhammad Buhari, has assigned the then Federal Ministry of Communications to be supervised by me. The first thing we did was to engage our colleagues in the ministry and the parastatals being supervised by the ministry to identify some gaps. What we discovered then, digital economy was officially missing in our country, most importantly at the federal level. There were some activities going on, but not in a formal and official way. It is because of this, I personally wrote a letter and also a proposal to the President of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, on the need to diversify our economy in our country by leveraging on digital economy. That request and proposal were approved by the President on 17 October 2019. And it was presented before the Federal Executive Council on 23rd October 2019. A day after, on 24th October 2019, we officially started the implementation of a digital economy in our country. So in summary, and this is the foundation of our digital economy officially. Part of the approval, Mr. President has approved the redesignation of the ministry from the Federal Ministry of Communications to the Federal Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, and that has been captured as the name of the ministry. And immediately we relate the same message to the parastatals we supervise, like NCC, Nigerian Communications Commission, National Information Technology Development Agency, Galaxy Backbone Limited, Nigerian Communication Satellite, Universal Service Provision Fund under NCC, and also Nigerian Postal Services, drawing their attention on the need to focus more on a digital economy in order to achieve a digital Nigeria. Part of what we did immediately was to develop a national policy for digital economy. which has been developed by and coordinated by the ministry as a National Digital Economy Policy and Strategy for a Digital Nigeria 2020 to 2030. In that document, we carefully came up with 8 pillars that are very strategic to achieving digital economy in Nigeria. Number 1 pillar is developmental regulation. Number 2 is digital skills. Number 3 is solid infrastructure. Number 4 is service infrastructure. Number 5 is digital services. Number 6 is soft infrastructure. Number 7 is digital society and emerging technologies. Number 8 is indigenous content development and promotion. Because of this conference, I will only speak on 3 superficially. That is pillar number 3, number 5, and number 7. Pillar number 3 is on solid infrastructure. We discovered that solid infrastructure was key to the success of our digital economy because that pillar accommodates broadband penetration and data centers. At that time, the broadband penetration in Nigeria was around 33%. That was achieved from 2000 to 2019. If you compute, you will discover the average annual increment is around 1.6. However, from 2015 to 2019, the average increase is 5% annually. But with the plan we have in place, within 1 year, we achieved 10% increase in broadband penetration, which is unprecedented in the history of the country. Why? Because we were able to address the significant challenges to broadband penetration in Nigeria, like the harmonization of right of way, which we were able to achieve through Nigeria Governance Forum, our engagement with them, issue of vandalization of infrastructure, that was achieved by sending a request to Mr. President, which he has approved, directing security institutions to provide protection to critical ICT infrastructure in the country, trying to handle the challenge of multiple taxation and many more. So this is one. So now the broadband penetration in the country as of the end of August, based on the report I have received from the regulatory body, is it was more than 46%. And we are targeting that hopefully by the end of this year, we could be able to achieve at least a minimum of 50% broadband penetration in the country. And this is highly commendable. Under data center, we already have tier 3 data center under Galaxy Backbone Limited, and we are still working on coming up with tier 4 data center. Most probably another one is going to be commissioned very soon in the country, I think is in Lagos. When it comes to digital services, we discovered that small and medium enterprises are key to the success of the digital economy. And this is our pillar number 5. It is because of this, we adopted the approach of IDE, which has been championed by Massachusetts Institute of Technology, that is innovation-driven entrepreneurship. So it is because of this, we are promoting small and medium enterprises to adopt innovation-driven entrepreneurship where their activities are going to be digitalized. And that has been achieved through COVID-19 pandemic that compelled us to redouble our effort and fast-track the implementation of the digital economy. And pillar number 7, which is digital society and emerging technologies, try to see the correlation between the implementation of digital economy on one hand and the way it impacts on our citizens on the other. And also we focus more on emerging technologies. It is because of this only last month, I commissioned National Center for Artificial Intelligence and Robotics here in Abuja. And the center is going to be coordinated by the National Information Technology Development Agency and to be supervised by the Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy. We have already developed a policy that is going to be implemented by the center, and now the policy is ready for implementation. And we are working on another very important policy, that is National Policy for Digital Innovation and Entrepreneurship, because digital innovation and digital entrepreneurship are key to the success of digital economy. So we are working on a policy in collaboration with our ICT hubs and startups all over the country to identify the challenges being encountered by our young innovators to see how government can provide the enabling environment for them to come up with crazy ideas that will make all of us proud. And I'm glad that you have organized a competition or a challenge like this, that at the end of today's conference, a prize is going to be presented to the winners. And finally, however, it has been quoted somehow that so far, as of second quarter of 2020, the contribution of ICT to our GDP is not 13% as earlier quoted, it's more than 17%. And this is only ICT sector alone, without accommodating digital services. If digital services were accommodated by the time they computed, that is in June 2020, 4 months ago or 5 months ago, if digital services were accommodated, definitely the contribution of digital economy will have been up to 45% or thereabout, because most of the things attached to financial institutions in the second quarter of 2020 were definitely part of digital economy, because ICT sector plus digital services will give us digital economy. So the journey has not been an easy one. However, the success we have recorded so far is highly commendable, and we are motivated to redouble our effort and ensure that a lot has been achieved. And because of time constraint, this is where I will shut down my presentation. I wish all of us a very successful deliberation during this conference. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, thank you very much, the Honorable Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Dr. Isa Ali Patami, for the extremely explanatory and great insights on the strides of the ministry. My name is Margaret Olele, and I'm the CEO and Executive Secretary of the American Business Council. Now it's time for the U.S. Chamber and Zenith Digital Entrepreneurship Award for Nigerian startups. It is really the first of its kind. Received, according to what the Deputy Secretary shared, 112 applicants, and pre-selected the top 12 for interviews with a panel of 5 judges from the academia, the private sector, and NICTA. These 12 candidates also shared with us a 2-minute video showcasing their digitally enabled innovative products and the impact they have had on the Nigerian citizens during the COVID-19 period, at least at the outset of the COVID-19 period. They were also assessed on the business model and scalability of their projects. Now, from the interview process, we also had a lot of other things around the issues concerning their scalability and how their projects can be assessed from the business model they have. From the interview process, we retained 3 candidates, and then also we're going to use the results from the live polling, 20% of this from today's conference to augment the results from the judges, of which was 80% in total. Just to also add that the voting process and results were independently certified by the KPMG forensic team. Now, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you the Group Managing Director of Zenith, Mr. Ebenezer Boniago, who will share a bit more about the competition as well as the Zenith's partnership in this great project. Over to you, Mr. Ebenezer.
Thinking of banking in Africa? Think Zenith. In today's fast-moving, fast-changing world, you need a financial partner that understands your unique expectations. A bank with presence in major financial centers across the world, with the enabling platform to facilitate seamlessly, whenever, wherever, however. A bank with best-in-class financial solutions from a superb combination of technology and human touch for easy, fast, and secure banking that creates real value. Turning dreams into reality is now in your hands. People, technology, service. Zenith Bank in your...
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen from Lagos, Nigeria. And on behalf of Jim Ovia, the chairman and founder of Zenith Bank PLC, I'm very much delighted to welcome you to the U.S. Chamber Zenith Bank Digital Entrepreneurship Awards. Zenith Bank is pleased to support this competition introduced on the margins of the US-Nigeria Digital Economy Conference to reward Nigerian startups with innovative solutions that have impacted citizens during the COVID-19 pandemic. Over the course of the competition, 112 applicants pitched various innovative solutions in healthcare, education, agriculture, fintech, supply chain, and many more. Subsequently, 12 top candidates were pre-selected for an interview with a panel of judges from academia, private and public sectors. Today, we are happy to unveil the top 3 laureates of the 2020 U.S. Chamber Zenith Bank Entrepreneurship Award, for whom participants at this conference will have the opportunity in just a moment to vote live to determine the eventual winners. I would like to commend all the applicants for presenting their innovations and to congratulate the top 3 winners. This digital entrepreneurship competition presents an opportunity to further boost digital transformation in Nigeria. The world, no doubt, is undergoing significant digital revolution driven by widespread availability of mobile technologies and internet connectivity, increased investment in cloud services, as well as other digital infrastructure. With the COVID-19 pandemic, we are witnessing extensive adoption of digital technologies to create new business models. This is happening across various sectors: finance, agriculture, health, manufacturing, and services. Even the public sector is not left out with the adoption and rollout of various e-government programs. The global digital economy is projected to hit $23 trillion, i.e. 24.3% of global GDP by year 2025. We understand that digitally enabled platform will be at the center of wealth creation in the future, and we want Nigeria to emerge as a thriving digital hub. As one of Africa's leading financial institutions, Zenith Bank encourages adoption of digital solutions by providing entrepreneurs with various electronic business solutions. These solutions cut across e-collections, e-payment, and e-reporting and monitoring tools. These tools are not only reliable but are also secured and cost-effective, enabling our clients to excel in a very competitive space. But we do not stop there. We are using platforms like this digital competition to support many of our youths who desire to create innovative digital solutions. In 2019, Zenith Bank launched the Zenith Tech Fair. The fair covers conversations and exhibitions in emerging technologies as well as hackathons to identify and finance innovative startups. I firmly believe that Nigerians' real assets are in its youth, not necessarily the minerals buried underneath its earth crust. The youth remains the biggest asset because of their abundant creativity and highly empowering innovative spirit. We see this in the vibrant music, movies, and tech subsectors of Nigeria's creative economy. The potential of the ICT sector was clearly demonstrated in 2014 as the sector was partly responsible for the rebasing of Nigeria's GDP from $270 billion to $510 billion, making Nigeria Africa's largest economy. The sector contributed 13.47% to Nigeria's real GDP in Q3 2020, which indeed is a significant contribution. The passion of our chairman and founder to create opportunities for Nigerian youths led to the establishment of the Jimovia Foundation, a foundation that has significantly supported the acquisition of digital skills by our youths. At Zenith Bank, our target is to continue getting our youth to fully tap the enormous potentials of Nigeria's digital economy. We are confident that with continued commitment and investment in the sector, the country will make significant progress in job creation and youth empowerment. Thus, Zenith Bank is truly honored to partner with the U.S. Chamber on this very laudable 2020 Digital Entrepreneurship Competition to showcase the various innovations of talented Nigerian startups during this conference. I say a big congratulations to all the winners. I will now turn to the U.S. Chamber to present the top 3 candidates and proceed to voting to determine the first, second, and third place winners and the corresponding prizes for the laureates. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Mr. Ebenezer Boniago, representing another one of our platinum sponsors at Zenith Bank. Once again, my name is Kristen Folkerts with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce's U.S. Africa Business Center. We are getting ready to officially begin the digital entrepreneurship competition portion of the program and play you the videos from each of our 3 incredible startup finalists. First, I want to quickly explain how you can participate and vote in this competition, so please pay attention. Our finalists are all currently logged into this platform and will be interacting with you in the chat feature to the right of your screen in the public chat area. Feel free to drop comments and questions there so they can respond back to you, or of course, you can always send them a private message. Competition finalists, AfroLearn International, Healthbotics Limited, and Tiny Hearts Technology, please say hi in the chat so everyone knows who you are. After all 3 videos are finished playing, we're going to have someone from our team come on screen and let you know that it is time to vote. You will scroll up and click on the Engage button located directly above this video on the right-hand side. From there, you can vote for your favorite team. You'll have 2 minutes to place your votes. Later in the program, we'll be announcing winners 1, 2, and 3. Of course, and as always, if you have any issues, let us know in the chat or email the help desk support email at digitaleconomynigeria2020@gmail.com. Now, let's watch videos from our finalists, AfroLearn International, Healthbotics Limited, and Tiny Hearts Technology. Thank you.
We all know that large unskilled population is dangerous liability for any nation. Unfortunately, as I speak, over 263 million young Africans are out of school. In Nigeria, 3% of the West African senior secondary certificate candidates failed the examination. Education systems across Africa are in crisis. It's an emergency. To solve this problem, AfroLearn integrates a network of seasoned teachers, developers, and animators to deliver richly animated and curriculum-relevant video lessons alongside gamified exam practice for Africans anywhere. Every day, the AfroLearn studio hosts expert tutors who teach different subjects in front of cameras. These contents are then developed into engaging animation and deployed for user subscription through the app, web, and data freedom boot services at highly affordable rates for secondary school students across Anglophone West African countries, a market of effectively over 300 million people. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic and school closure, on April 5, 2020, AfroLearn launched ClassNotes.ng, a viral edtech site that provides complete secondary education notes online at 299 naira monthly subscription. That's less than $1. Within the first month, the platform organically amassed over 137,000 views with over 1,000 paid subscribers, making over 300,000 naira in the first month. This is set to break even in 4 months with an estimated first-year revenue of over 17 million naira. The massive advantage with AfroLearn is that though our technology products are created once, they continually generate increased revenue for life with little additional costs. The global edtech market is projected to reach $341 billion by 2025, and AfroLearn is well positioned to be a catalyst fueling this growth across Africa. Therefore, an investment in AfroLearn is an investment in Africa's future. We know where we're headed. We're already well on our way, and with your support, we can swiftly disrupt and transform Africa's education sector forever.
I know what it feels like to be powerless. I know the pain. I lost my best friend because we couldn't get blood, and yet there I was training to be a doctor.
Nigeria suffers from perennial shortage of blood, with a supply deficit of 350,000 yearly. This deficit causes death. Only 10% of all blood donations in Nigeria are for voluntary donors. 90% are from family and replacement donors who collect money to donate their blood. My name is Ibm.
And my name is Imodoye Abioro. Our solution, Project Lender Now, sensitizes people on the importance of voluntary blood donation and invites them to participate in our serial blood drives. At these drives, we register them on our application where they can chat, connect, form bonds, and even create their own voluntary blood drives. Blood collected from our drives are supplied to hospitals and blood banks in our environment at no cost to them. However, corruption and poor storage facilities at these centers see these units of blood sold to patients in need at exorbitant prices. Thus, we're expanding our services. We are launching and creating Africa's first smart blood bank, delivering blood to patients who are in need in less than 30 minutes, using a combination of point-of-care technology, Internet of Things, and delivery drone.
Our solution, Project Lender Now, has won multiple awards, including that by the WHO. It's our passionate pursuit to put an end to preventable death of our mothers and children.
Yes.
is Virtue Oboro. I am the founder of Tiny Hearts Technology. In 2016, my son was diagnosed with severe neonatal jaundice, and this was a very tough time for me because we didn't have access to an effective phototherapy unit. Hospitals around, both government and private hospitals, didn't have effective phototherapy units to use for my son, and this triggered the idea of innovating an effective solution for available and affordable phototherapy treatment for jaundiced babies. Jaundice is the yellow coloration of the eyes caused by a substance called bilirubin in the blood of the baby. If jaundice is not treated effectively and properly in newborns, it could cause blindness, deafness, slow developmental stages, or even death in newborn babies. But Tiny Hearts Technology produces an effective solution to this by deploying and producing the Crib-a-Glow phototherapy units. It's a device that works either on solar or electricity. Right now, we want an effective digital platform to deploy these units beyond Nigeria, but to Africa at large. During this COVID-19 era, Tiny Hearts Technology has seen the need to go beyond just saving jaundiced babies in Nigeria. We now organize sensitization programs for COVID-19 alongside sensitizing pregnant and nursing mothers how to take caution. We have organized fundraisers and donations to provide PPEs for hospitals in rural areas, and lastly, employed even more workers, thus empowering the youth during this period. Tiny Hearts Technology needs to expand our impact. We want you to vote for us to save more babies and impact more lives in Nigeria and Africa at large. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Breon Dawson. I am the Senior Director at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. You just watched the 3 amazing pitches from AfroLearn International, HealthBotics Limited, and Tiny Hearts Technology. At the Chamber, together with our partners at the American Business Council in Nigeria, we were thrilled that we received over 112 applications for our digital entrepreneurship competition. We see this as a signal of the vibrancy and talent across Nigeria's dynamic entrepreneurial ecosystem. Difficult as it was, our panel of 5 judges from academia, the public, and the private sectors helped to whittle down this competitive field, and I want to thank them for their role in selecting our finalists. Now, this is the fun part. It's time where you come in to vote for your favorite. To vote, I'd like to ask you to scroll up and click on the Engage button located directly above this video on the right-hand side. From there, you can vote for your favorite venture. If you have any issues, let us know in the chat or email the help desk support at digitaleconomynigeria2020@gmail.com. You'll have 2 minutes to place your votes. Ready, set, go. Thank you so much for placing your votes. We will be announcing the winners in about 45 minutes after the ministerial panel, so don't go anywhere. If you'd like to network with the pitch competition winners or any other attendee at this event, you can click on the networking tab to the left of your screen and use the private or group chat feature to do so. If you have any questions, again, you can contact our help desk at digitaleconomynigeria2020@gmail.com. Up next, you'll hear from Victor Okoronkwo, CEO at ITEO Eastern Exploration and Production Company Limited. Thank you.
From its humble roots in 1999, ITEO has grown to become one of Africa's fastest energy leaders, contributing in no small measure to the advancement of the Nigerian energy industry. Our integrated value chain in the upstream, downstream, and power sectors is underpinned by extensive local capacity development with significant opportunities to sustain ITEO's future business. In 2014, ITEO raised the single largest debt financing in Nigerian oil and gas sector from local banks to become the successful bidder for 45% of OML 29. ITEO is breaking new grounds. We have a clear vision for the future and the knowledge and assets necessary to provide for our energy needs on a regional and global scale. Get to know the future. The future is ITEO.
The Honorable Minister, Dr. Issa Ali Ibrahim, the U.S. Deputy Secretary of Commerce, Karen Dunkelley, on behalf of Mr. Benedict Peters, the Executive Vice Chairman and founder of the ITEO Group, I would like to thank the President, U.S. Africa Business Center, U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and his colleagues for organizing this very important conference and for giving ITEO the opportunity to partner with the Chamber on this occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, please permit me to then rely on the already established protocol. With the emergence of the novel coronavirus, COVID-19, we have all found ourselves living in a fast evolving digital world where the value of this digital transformation cannot be overemphasized. Several speakers have referenced that in this conference. The fundamental of digitalization is creating value from data. In the upstream oil and gas sector where we operate, data drives the decisions that we make and ultimately drives the bottom line. Over the years, digital technology has evolved from static information to the predictive domain, requiring constant information updates. Today, to remain competitive, organizations have to leverage remote sensing, artificial intelligence, and Internet of Things to support decision making. Indeed, by a twist of fate, the COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated digital penetration into the economy as companies, organizations, and even countries have to make quick adjustments to go online and to remain productive. Nigeria is not an exception. It has also brought to fore the pervasiveness of digital technology as an enabler not only for economic growth, but also for economic integration. However, with all the benefits, digitalization brings with it the challenge of digital security, a challenge we should keep in mind as we navigate the digital landscape towards diversification and growing the Nigerian economy. At ITEO, we recognize that the people part of digital transformation is as important as the technologies, the processes, and indeed the infrastructure involved. In driving the people part of our digital transformation journey, we acknowledge three key elements. We acknowledge mindset, skill set, and tool set. We also recognize 5 basic principles that organizations should consider when developing their digital business models. These principles are: number one is that the digital transformation is not a technology-led solution. It is a business-led transformation that leverages technology. Number 2, digital transformation requires all aspects of the organization's operating model, starting from its vision, strategy, processes, culture, and behaviors to encompass digitization. Digital solutions also need to be holistic and inclusive of all the facets of the organization's ecosystem. Companies need to customize their own solutions, as there is no one-size-fits-all. It is also important to get the right balance between technical and technology requirements and capabilities in order to attain the expected digital dividend. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, enabling the Nigerian digital economy is not a task for the government alone, but a collaboration between public and private sectors of the economy. ITIL is indeed very honored to be associated with this initiative. Again, on behalf of our founder and executive chairman, Mr. Benedict Peters, I wish the ministerial panel fruitful deliberations and look forward to their recommendations. Thank you all, and God bless you.
Well, excellent. And thank you very much, Victor, for that great overview and introduction. And thank you so much, Iteo, for your continued support of today's platform and our ongoing engagements between the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Nigeria, and beyond. I'm inspired to do better, honestly, based on watching those videos of our startup pitches. I feel like I haven't really accomplished enough in my life in comparison to the impact that those 3 upstanding business units are having on lives, touching on so many things from education to health. It really was an inspiring moment in time. And I hope to be able to build on that as we move our program forward at the U.S. Chamber and in partnership with the American Business Council of Nigeria. In just a few minutes, I'm going to be turning to our panelists to deliver brief 2-minute opening remarks. But before we do that, I'd like to start our panel with a policy poll to the audience to gauge their insight into the following question. What should African governments, including Nigeria, do to harness the potential of the 4th Industrial Revolution? Should they, 1, prepare to the next generation Africa 4.0 workforce with digital literacy and skills, enhance tech innovation through entrepreneurship ecosystem development, improve the business climate, and strengthen public-private partnerships for the digital economy, or 4, all of the above? Once this poll is open, all you'll have to do to vote is scroll up and click on the Engage button located directly above this video on the right-hand side. From there, you can submit your vote. The results will come up live on the screen. You'll have about 30 seconds to place your votes, and by the way, voting is now open. It's now my time and my privilege to introduce our panel. We have just about 45 minutes of our discussion today. On the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see a box where you can download and read everyone's complete bio, so I'm not going to do that today. In fact, I'll just be saying their name and their titles to help us speed along the conversation. My team is monitoring the Q&A chat and will be feeding those questions to me. We want to make sure that this panel discussion is as interactive as possible. So thank you very much for everyone's participation today and for leading such a vibrant discussion with us. Following the introductions of each of these 4 panelists, what we'll be doing is then turning it back over, and I'll pose the poll question and give you all the remarks of who won or what the topical area was most important, and I'll have a reflection from each of the panelists on their part of that. So I'd now like to turn to Mo Darwish, our sponsor of today's event as well, along with many others such as IBM and our friends at Google. But Mo, why don't we turn to you for brief 2-minute remarks?
Thanks, Scott. So my name is Mo Darwish. I'm the CEO for IHS Towers, the Nigerian part of it, one of the leading infrastructure companies in the telecom sector. I mean, listening to throughout the morning, throughout the past hour, I heard people mentioning that the ICT contribution to the GDP in Nigeria is 13%, and then the Honorable Minister came in to correct that it's 17%. At one point it was 13%, and before that it was 10%, and before that it was 8%. But what we have been seeing over this year, and particularly over the past 2 years, really this ICT sector has been basically growing drastically despite the pandemic that we are going through. A lot of people are saying, and unfortunately for us, that this is the sector that is actually has, maybe I don't want to use the word benefited, but it is slightly from the pandemic. Initially, the impact wasn't that great, but later on, it got better. And I think when you start thinking about digital economy, which is the theme of this conference, you start talking about the various sectors in the economy, and you start thinking health. I mean, a lot of governments are saying don't go to the hospital if you don't have severe symptoms. So now there are a lot of applications that talk about not only appointments, but even diagnosis, online diagnosis with some artificial intelligence, not to talk to a doctor. Education, I mean, if it wasn't face-to-face interaction, one-on-one, people would have been fine to do it from online. And if it wasn't for the parents who have to go to work and this and that. So we are seeing now more than this technology, and basically digitizing economy is no more a luxury, or is no more to drive efficiency. Actually, it's becoming a need, and it's becoming a requirement. And the ICT sector is the driver for this. And for the ICT sector to succeed, the telecom sector has to grow. And for the telecom sector to grow, the investment has to pour into the infrastructure. And I think, lastly, this panel in particular is iterating that infrastructure is no more the solid asset, the physical assets. Infrastructure is also about and should focus on people, and because they are really the ones who drive change.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Mo, CEO of IHS Towers, for that opening remarks. I'd now like to turn to Deepo Faulkner, who's the president of the American Business Council and the country general manager for IBM, for his 2-minute opening remarks. And a reminder to unmute yourselves.
Good afternoon, Scott and Tim. My name is Deepo Faulkner. I'm the country general manager of IBM for West Africa, and I'm also the president of the American Business Council. In my role, I'm responsible for all of IBM's business within the region, and I also lead the council, of the American Business Council. I think that this seminar is very important for us as a country, as Africans, and as a country, in the sense that technology drives our daily lives today. And it's very important for us as a people to decide what we want to use technology for, how we want to use technology, and what we intend to let technology drive, and how we want to use technology to improve our economy, as a nation. I think at the heart of this is also those who are meant to drive this for us, which is the youth of the nation. It's very important that we come up with very proactive and very well thought through agenda for enabling the youth with the right skills to enable them to take Nigeria to the next frontier. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Deepo. I'd now like to turn to Charles Marito, who's the Director of Sub-Saharan Africa, Government Affairs and Public Policy for Google. Charles?
Thank you very much, Scott. Honorable Minister, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me to be part of this ministerial panel. It is exciting to be looking at where we are as a continent, and I'll just give a couple of statistics in classic Google fashion regarding the internet economy. Just a few weeks back, we launched the African Internet Economy Report in collaboration with the IFC as well as Accenture. And in this particular report, we were looking at the growth of the human capital across Africa over the next 10 to 15 years. By 2050, we anticipate that Africa is going to be 2.5 billion people, but with about 40% digital penetration currently, we anticipate that we're going to see about another 500 million people getting online over the next 5 years. This is a significant amount of people who will be online. What's powerful about this is the fact that for every 10% of increased digital penetration, we see a nominal GDP growth of 2.5% for nations across the continent. We therefore really need to ensure that we're doubling down on the internet penetration. It's an honor to have Mohammed here from IHS Towers, and the people who are trying to drive penetration across. And my urge is that we collaborate more with governments and other private sector organizations to ensure that we're lowering the cost of access across the continent so that more and more people can be able to get online. As Mohammed mentioned, we've seen a lot of people starting to use digitization this year, especially as a result of COVID. This is really important. However, I do want to point out the fact that a lot of students have been left out of school because they don't have access to the internet. It is therefore critical as we look at the growth of our youth over the next 20, 30 years leading into 2050, that we ensure that no child is left behind, that digital is a basic right for everyone across the continent. And what we will be able to see is an increased acceleration of GDP growth and enrichment of our African population. With that, I hand over back to Scott. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Charles. And I think that's a great segue to having our opening remarks from the Honorable Minister. Mr. Minister, if you would mind taking yourself, putting yourself back on video and unmuting yourself, that would be terrific. You're still there, Mr. Minister? Thank you, sir.
So thank you very much once again. Are we together, please?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so once again, thank you very much for organizing this very important conference. I have listened to some of the previous speakers, and I personally commend what they have said. And most importantly, when it comes to digital enabling skills and digital development in the country, as I earlier said during my opening remark or the keynote speech, we have so many policies in place to provide digital skills for our citizens, like National Digital Economy Policy and Strategy for Digital Nigeria, National Policy on Digital Innovation and Entrepreneurship is another one. And there are at least 2 or 3 more policies in place that are driving, providing digital skills to our citizens. Furthermore, during even lockdown, COVID-19 pandemic lockdown, we established a virtual academy, one of them in collaboration with IBM and the other one in collaboration with other multinationals. We encourage our citizens to acquire the digital skills. Within 40 to 50 days, more than 70,000 Nigerians enroll into the program. As I'm speaking with you today, over 120,000 Nigerians have already enrolled into our virtual academy where they acquire digital skills, some at basic level, some intermediate, some even advanced. Our approach to digital skills or digital economy is not only restricted to youth, but it is an all-inclusive one. It is a digital inclusion. There is a training for women, training for children, catch them young, training for youth, training for people with disabilities, training for unemployed graduates. So our approach is to ensure that each and every segment of our society is accommodated, because sometimes when we talk, we only give emphasis on only one category. But when it comes to digital economy, we should try to ensure that we accommodate all our citizens and they get the required skills to be part and parcel of our digital economy. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. I think that's an excellent point, that digital skills aren't just bestowed upon the youth of the population, that everyone needs an upskilling of where they are today, including myself. If I could learn how to code, I might not be speaking to you all today. Maybe I'd be the next millionaire. But why don't we turn back to the poll and see where we are on our reactions. So not surprisingly, that it takes a cohesive environment to really enable digital skills development. And so as you've seen on the screen in front of you, people across the board feel overwhelmingly that you need both the, you need to prepare the next generation for the next workforce. We need to enhance tech innovation through entrepreneurship, ecosystem development, and we very much need to improve the business climate to strengthen the public-private partnerships for the digital economy. Mr. Minister, reflecting on that, I want to come back to you. I know you just touched on that. how do you see the evolution of this policy ecosystem evolving within Nigeria to make sure that all of the skills development environments there, and more importantly, the incentives are there for a business to heavily invest in the Nigerian ecosystem?
Sorry, please.
Oh, sorry. If I was saying, based on the reaction to the poll, that everyone feels as though everything under the sun needs to be incorporated, including the skills development, the technology innovation, and the partnerships. What are the types of things that you would see business can do and to further invest and enhance their stake in the digital economy? And at the same time, what is the role of government to provide the incentives to enable that growth?
I think firstly, when it comes to government, our main responsibility is to provide the enabling environment for investment to be done and many more. And I think this is what we have been doing so far. For those in the private sector, I believe will be a witness that what we have achieved so far in providing the enabling environment is unprecedented, with all sense of humility, particularly when it comes to right of way. Before I came on board, the issue of right of way has been lingering for many years, and there wasn't any significant intervention to harmonize it. For the first time in the history of Nigeria, that there was an agreement between the federal government and the state governors that right of way must be harmonized. Not only harmonization, when we harmonize, we must stick to that. So far, in 36 states plus FCT Abuja, I received only one complaint. All other states do comply based on the information available with me. A month ago, Abuja couldn't comply with the directives. I had to engage FCT minister. We discussed with him, and he agreed to the extent that they earlier suspended even the issue of right of way. It was not given, but based on our intervention, now they have already removed that suspension, and they allow operators to come in and invest. So some of the interventions we have been making, I believe, are really encouraging to investors to come and invest more. And secondly, when it comes to vandalization of infrastructure, which happens to both private and public sector, even in the public sector, we have a case of vandalization. We cannot say that we have completely stopped it, but there is a significant improvement in protection of investment in ICT sector in the country. For the first time in the history that the president has approved, directing all security institutions to ensure that they provide cover and they protect any ICT investment in the country. And I think this is another area which is also unprecedented. And thirdly, we always try to operate an open door policy. Whenever a complaint comes to us, we engage stakeholders either at state level or at federal level to ensure that we resolve the issue amicably so that we will be able to drive our digital economy successfully. So I think this is one area that government has been doing its best to provide the enabling environment. Secondly, when it comes to investors, I think no investor will ignore a country like Nigeria. Nigeria is a country with approximately 200 million people, most probably 205 million people as of today, the largest population in Africa. Secondly, if you look at Nigeria, you will discover geographically we are somehow at the center of Africa. We are part and parcel of West Africa. We share border with Central Africa. So if you look at the map of Africa, you will discover that from Nigeria, it is just like the center of West Africa, South Africa, North Africa, and East Africa. So when any business that thrives in Nigeria, by implication, it will go to any part of Africa because we are the leaders of Africa when it comes to population, when it comes to our gross domestic product, and when it comes to many things. So it is because of this, I think, no any responsible investor that will ignore this huge population, and not only the population that has been dominated by youth. As we all know that the youth are naturally inclined to digitalization. They are digital natives. So our population, if you look at our average age in Nigeria, is around 19 years of age. So this tells you that we don't have problem of aging like many developed nations where you discover the average age is 40 or 45, some even 50. as of today. But in Africa or in Nigeria, our average age is around 19 years old. So, and as we all know that youth are always attached to digitalization, to ICT, and many more. And furthermore, if you look at it, government has been coming up with so many policies recently to encourage investment. There are many of them. Even during our fortnight, 3 weeks ago, during our Federal Executive Council, we discussed extensively on the need to review some taxes where government reduced certain taxes for some categories of investment in the country, some reduction by 20%, some reduction even by 80%, some reduction by 100% completely. And this is another area that government has been doing well in order to encourage more investment into the country. And most importantly, investment that will come and invest within the country. We have so many policies in place to protect your investment and support you to thrive. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. I want to come back to our panel, perhaps reflecting a little bit on the all-encompassing world of the poll that took, but I also want to touch a little bit on this talent-based acquisition, both on the empowering side, but also how do you then go out and find the talent you need to further expand your businesses. So perhaps starting with Charles, mainly because he's in the middle of the screen and staring at me, how can we better unleash workforce development through potential public-private partnerships? And what are you doing as a company and as an ecosystem around the digital economy to enable that? I'll then go to Mohammed and then to Deepa with the same question.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you, Honorable Minister. I couldn't echo your point regarding making sure that the talent is ready, not just from the youth, but everybody encompasses this. And I just want to highlight something that was part of the Internet Economy Report. In Nigeria alone, we have 85,000 professional developers. That is 12% of all developers that are available on the continent. And this is something that's really important to note. As you may know, we have about 700,000 developers on the continent, which is only slightly less than what we have in Europe. And on a per capita basis, outside agricultural talent, Africa is almost on par with the US average. So we are ready to leverage technology and the digital ecosystem to take advantage of the opportunities that lie ahead for us to digitize government, to digitize other sectors, for instance, agriculture, minerals, healthcare, etc., so that we can really advance when it comes to the economy. What we are doing at Google is that over the last 4 years, we've been working towards a goal of educating 10 million Africans on digital skills. To date, we're just over about half of that, which is 5 million Africans who have taken digital skills training. We've also committed to train 100,000 Africans on developer skills so that they can understand how to code, they can be able to really leverage technology and help digitize and drive digitization, both at private sector as well as at government, because a digital government is a more efficient government. So I really would love to continue working closely with the Honorable Minister in Nigeria so that we can be able to help Nigeria advance both from a skills perspective as well as from an industry and digital transformation perspective, because this is something that is critical, and we at Google are more than ready and are willing to be able to drive this. In closing, I want to talk about the opportunity around digitization in terms of economy. What we've recently done, especially with the tourism sector, as you know, with COVID, a lot of tourist countries got to get a massive hit. But we worked closely with the Nigerian Tourism Authority to launch a Google Arts and Culture digitization project. And we're looking to enable the smart data that we can be able to reach people who are interested in Nigeria, who want to come and experience different parts and sounds of Nigeria, including something that we digitized, which is called Come Belly Chop, which is making sure that we can curate the best of Nigerian food and really ensure that people all around the world can be able to see this, but more importantly, can be able to help drive more tourists to Nigeria. With that, I'll pause there in the interest of time.
Thanks very much. I'd like to now turn to Mo. Mohammed, your view on how do we integrate this skills development workforce methodology into the workforce and what you all are doing to try to enable that, given that the backbone is really where you all enable that cross-continental connection?
Yes. So Scott, first, listen, to achieve what we want, I think the minister touched base on the enabling environment. So first of all, what we need from the government is to create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive. Opportunities, as he said, in Nigeria, they are abundant. I've been there for 20 years, lived there for 20 years. The market is never shy of opportunities. So when you have an enabling environment that from a government in terms of policies and implementation, that's the first step. When we start zooming more the education system, we're talking about digital skills, which I will tackle now. The education system, unfortunately, in a lot of emerging markets needs a lot of work. And that was one of the ideas, I think, in the Zenith innovation competition that tackled on that element as well. So as an education system, as a schooling system, in general, there has to be some work to elevate the quality of education there. And then when we start focusing about the digital skills, digital skills are critical for the Nigerian workforce to be competitive, but also this alone is not the solution. It's not enough. The traditional skills that we always had, such as critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration, communication, will always stay important and will always be needed. But digital skills is that extra element that enables really us, rather than doing a lot of the work ourselves, to start to outsource that to automation, to artificial intelligence, and so on and so forth. We can always create a robot to do things, but can that robot really replace us in terms of the thinking process? Maybe one day with artificial intelligence, but I'm not that of an optimist yet. So there has to be a lot of work, a lot of emphasis on STEM, technology, math, science, these digital learning platforms. There are a lot of them that are out there that enable people to learn. I mean, we at IHS, we have created a digital academy for us. It has around 5,000 courses that varies from management to business to corporate governance to ethics, telecom to engineering to finance. We have opened it for our staff. I mean, they have taken it more than 150,000 times, the number of times these courses have been taken. We are opening it now to our vendors. We have more than 40,000 people indirectly working for IHS, so we are opening it now to them. Sometimes these tools, and you feel what you see is a lot of drive and enthusiasm. People start competing. I'm taking more courses online. I'm learning the skill. Now I know how to do this. We also have a program. Sometimes we send certain vans into certain schools in country to teach school pupils about robotics, about some basics of coding. You're not going to solve the problem by doing this, but what we are doing is trying to entice these students and the youth that, there is this interesting technology out there that focus on your education in school. You can start learning that on the side. We as a business, the government, we have to do more to make those channels available for them to tap into, but it's creating and enticing them really to jump into it. And Nigerians, I mean, they are very digital savvy. They like media, they like content. Nollywood is probably the largest producers of movies in the world. So the interest is there. I think it's just harnessing that in that aspect.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Deepo, what is IBM doing, and how do you see this integration through some of the platforms you're doing to touch base on, excuse me, both the augmented reality of which we are in today as a result of COVID, but beyond that, the skills development, and where do you see this all playing in and supporting what the minister's trying to achieve? You're on mute, Deepo. There you go.
Thanks, Scott. I think there's no doubt that education and human capital development continues to be a key factor for our development as a nation. And listening to what the other speakers have said, as well as that addressed by the Honorable Minister, I think we need a unified curriculum for technology development as a nation at the different tiers of education. starting right from the primary level to secondary as well as tertiary education. I think we also need one for non-formal schooling, and that's where the STEM program will become very, very effective for those who are currently not in school. Because if you look at the indices and in certain parts of Nigeria, most of the younger people or the youths of those areas are currently not in school. And it's important that we carry them in this development, as a nation. Now, it's not something that's going to be done by one agency or one company. It's going to be a combined effort where you bring the very best of the different players within the technology space to help define this curriculum in which we're going to adopt, as a nation. In terms of what IBM is doing and what we continue to do even during the pandemic, we launched our Digital Nations Africa about 2-3 years ago. The program is an online free learning program. It's also an innovative platform that helps to provide youths with the right digital skills. The program enables our citizens, entrepreneurs, as well as communities with knowledge and tools to innovate, to design and develop and learn their own digital solutions. It's got over 90 courses, 300 hours of learning of various topics, including cloud computing, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, design thinking, problem solving, and the rest of them. In terms of collaborations so far, our first one was in partnership with the Office of the Vice President under the NPower program. The NPower program is a social investment program of the federal government, and the other was to upskill university graduates on digital skills. We trained over 25,000 graduates on emerging technologies. We're currently working with the Honorable Minister in the Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy. We signed an MOU with the ministry in January of this year for Nigeria digital skills development to train Nigerian youth and technology enthusiasts on digital skills. From year to date, we've trained over and certified over 13,000 youth. We also have a collaboration with the Ministry of Youth and Sports. We established a partnership with the ministry to train Nigerian youths in our IBM Digital Nations platform. And year to date, we've trained about 7,000 persons. We're also working with state governments. We're working with Kaduna State Government, where we kicked off on the Kaduna Digital Skills Program, as well as the Lagos State Government under the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund Program. We also have some of our clients who've also adopted the IBM Digital Nations platform as a key solution in helping to address some of the digital skills gaps we see in Nigeria. One of such of our clients is First Bank, and we're currently working with First Bank on their 1 million kids to e-learning initiative, which is something that we partner with them, and is one of First Bank's corporate response to COVID-19 pandemic. We're going to work with other clients such as Access Bank, Guarantee Trust Bank, Union Bank, Stanbic IBTC, and EcoBank to ensure that we help address the skill gaps we find in our local environment. Our second program is Ibm Skills Academy, which is a career-oriented classroom-based training for academia, where we focus on IBM technologies and tools in the areas I mentioned earlier, and it helps to prepare the students for the job market. What we basically do is we train the faculty members. The faculty members then go ahead to train the students, and the students get certified in the solutions we put on the table. The program was launched in 2014, and yet today we've trained over 1,000 faculty members and over 4,000 students across 44 universities in Nigeria. We believe that this is just a drop in the ocean. We believe that with a more holistic digital or technology curriculum for Nigeria, we can do more, as well as the other partners within the technology ecosystem, to help move Nigeria to the right levels within the digital economy space. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Debo. We've got a number of questions that will be directed specifically at the Nigerian government, and what we might do to help to facilitate that so the broader audience can benefit from those reactions is to pose those to the ministry after this panel discussion today, and then feed those back out as a way to follow up with our audience. So I may not be getting to all of the direct questions for the minister. He's been so generous with his time today, and I know he's got a lot of things on his mind. I do want to turn to a couple of themes that have popped up in our chat window as far as questions. They're really around the SMEs. We know that any good economy is really built on small and medium-sized enterprises. Without them, you wouldn't have an IBM, you wouldn't have an IHS, you wouldn't have a Google. It's the small people, it's the small companies that have big ideas, and we're hearing more about that from our startup today. So I want to touch base with you all on this closing question, and then we'll go to closing comments. We've got about 15 minutes left. What is the proper environment to enable SMEs to grow? How do we make sure they have resources that get them the proper education, not just in the digital skills, but how to manage and run their businesses? What are the technology platforms that help them with accounting? How do they make sure that the billing cycles? How do they help with payments of their employees? And then secondarily, a similar question that popped up is, as we talk about this digital transformation, how do we make sure that this gets to a grassroots level, again, to the SME level? All of us on this panel today can talk about the opportunities that it presents large companies, but how do we make sure that those out in small little villages with, you know, solar powered and off grid can also benefit from the changes that are taking place at the central government? And what maybe perhaps, Mr. Minister, you can touch on a little bit on how the governors, which I know we have many participating with us today, benefit from the federal system. But I think I might start with Mo on this one, and then go to Deepo, Charles, and then end with you, Mr. Minister, for some brief comments.
I'll try to be brief, Scott. Yes, we deal with a lot of SMEs. You know, we have in Nigeria 16,000 locations, 16,000 towers. So if we want to build a new location, or if we want to maintain a certain location in the outskirts of Gombe State, we're not going to go and get somebody from Lagos. What we will do is we'll go and recruit people from that community. So what we end up having is a lot of group of few people just form a small company, and they start providing services for IHS. We are a large company. We have very strict corporate governance and processes and systems. So when you start dealing with these people, you see some sort of a gap in the way that they work. They work differently. They don't keep documentation, and they don't keep their own KYC, and maybe they are starting to comply with the taxes. So what we do is we start to force these changes and these systems on them. And then we have a huge training that's done by our supply chain department. So very strict on KYC, very strict on those companies. And for example, for bidding, you want to get your money, you have to submit the PFI, and then we give you a PO, and then you raise your invoice, and then you go get it signed. So they are starting, what you see is they struggle slightly at the start, because sometimes like, why are they doing this? I just want my money. I just want to move on. But with time, they start to adjust and to know that this is eventually for their best in case there is dispute in the future, in case there is something. And that's where you start, you know, transferring knowledge and transferring the way you run a business from being a big company to those small SMEs that really, when we were an SME one day when we started in 2000, we were very small number of people. And then we grew because we used to work very closely with Motorola. And we learned from their own systems and processes in Nigeria, being the big American company, how we operate. So it's the same thing. They transfer to us, we transfer to them. And I think that's going to be the key for their development.
Excellent. Thanks, Mo. Deepo?
Okay. I think to the first question around, the second question is around going to the grassroots, the one on SME. I think in addition to funding issues, we've got to put in place an enabling environment to help the SMEs become a bit more structured even at the beginning of their business. So how do I run a business? How do I run it effectively? How do I run a shared back office, which is not necessarily owned by myself? Or where do I get such services from? How do I use tools that I don't need to own, that probably I'm just paying for a segment usage or for a per hour or a per unit usage? I think all of those need to be put in place for the SME market segment to be able to grow and grow as they should, as they ought to grow and should grow in our local market. For when I look at the Ibm business, we're an indirect business, which means we don't serve our clients directly. We go through our business partners that are local companies and local businesses. And we see over time how those companies start from just fulfilling transactions to developing deep skills in the IBM tools and solutions, and start to provide those skills to our client, as well as support our clients on a longer term basis to be able to support their business, to become a lot more successful. But it starts with ensuring that these guys are able to survive in their first few months or years in business. And to do so, all the things that will be potential issues for them to manage must be available in some form or the other. So I should be able to procure solutions, units without being able to buy the entire suite of solutions. I should be able to find HR services, for instance, on a need basis, or legal services or accounting services on a need basis and not on a regular basis. And that would really help them. In terms of how to take the technology initiatives and transmission to the grassroots, I think it all starts with the federal government providing an enabling environment for this to happen. I think companies that are interested, entrepreneurs that are interested, needs to be encouraged to go into those areas and make those investments happen. We have a couple of companies that are already doing that in Nigeria. Companies like ATC building porta cabins in different locations in Nigeria. Those porta cabins typically come with computer systems. They come with solar panels for electricity, a generator, as well as air conditioning in those. They're very small. They take just about 15, 20 people, but those are kind of initiatives we need in the hinterland to take these skills into hinterland and start to train people, get them to become a lot more innovative, and encourage them to build solutions that are required for their local environment. Not necessarily solutions that are required in Lagos, Abuja, or Port Harcourt, but solutions that are going to improve their living in those areas, and that's where you get a lot of innovation coming out of them from. I think I'll leave for the next person to also add to this.
Thank you very much, Deepo. I really appreciate those insights. I'm going to turn to Charles before coming back to the minister for perhaps a closing commentary on this and any other themes, and I'll come back around the horn so everyone gets a moment. But Charles, we've been watching the sun set behind you, so perhaps you could give us a vision of the future.
Thank you very much, Scott. So we actually, earlier on this year, in the height of COVID, we did a study working very closely with SMBs across the continent and really came up with 3 need states that were the themes that most SMBs consistently keep talking about. The first need state is around skills and mentorship. They said to us that they really need to be given the skills on how to get online, how to expand their business online, how to leverage the marketplace and find people that are beyond their community so that they can be able to reach broader audiences who are interested in their market. And one of the most successful things is that we found a lady who's based in Lagos who now sells these beaded works all around the world, leveraging technology and social media and Instagram to be able to reach her audiences. And that's an example of the ability that technology and digital platforms enable SMBs across Nigeria and across Africa to be able to reach people beyond their close community. So that's the first need state of skills, mentorship, and how to get online. The second need state that we found out is around financing. And this is something that's really critical. More governments and Honorable Minister working closely with your government, I think it's really critical for us to be able to help SMBs have access to funds, especially right now during COVID. They're struggling. Most SMBs will either fail, especially because of lack of working capital. So the ability to help them find low-cost funding to enable them reach their audiences and continue staying afloat in these very challenging times is something that's really critical. And so that is something that governments and private sector can partner to be able to help smaller businesses to stay afloat. And then the third piece is if you have the skills, if you have the funding, you need to find markets. And this is something which we're working very closely with SMBs. We launched a program called Project Rise Up. And the notion of Project Rise Up is to ensure that SMBs can be able to find markets beyond where they live. We launched a product specifically for this, which leverages artificial intelligence, whereby SMBs can be able to build in what we call Google My Business, i.e. get their business online. And then based on the information that they put in, what is their product? What is the market they look at? Where are they based, etc. We have a product called Market Finder. And with Market Finder, they can be able to see what audiences can they reach around the world. But in addition to just finding the audiences, they're able to look at other points such as what is the taxation regime to be able to export to those particular markets. What kinds of logistics companies can they be able to leverage to get their goods to those particular markets, et cetera, et cetera. So Market Finder is a really powerful tool that we've now launched. It's available in Nigeria, and people and SMBs can be able to leverage this. So again, just to wrap up, 3 need states. How do I find mentorship and skills to get online? How do I get funding? And how do I reach new markets? And this is something that's critical for SMBs, because as we know, the pulse of every single economy, even Nigeria, is anchored on SMBs and SMB growth. So with that, I'll hand back over to you, Scott.
Great, thanks. Well, I planned on coming back to everyone for a last word, but we are approaching our witching hour, if you will. So before turning to the minister for really giving him the last word to react to some of these commentary, what we'll need to do is thank you all. We'll be transitioning in just a couple of minutes for the announcement of what we're really all here for, which is the Startup Award, because what we've been talking about today is this environment of enabling. So thank you all for your participation. I want to turn to the Minister for a last comment on this before we transition over.
So thank you very much once again. I have listened to their comments and their observations as well, and I have taken note of all of them. However, you earlier asked a question, however, it's just somehow indirectly about what we have been doing to support the states in the implementation of national digital economy policy and strategy. Firstly, from the name, we couldn't say federal digital economy, we say national. So by using the word national, it is a clear indication that all states are involved. And secondly, our responsibility is to coordinate the development of the policy, which has been done. Now it is a national policy, no more our personal policy or policy of the ministry, but rather it is a national policy. And going through the policy and as well the strategy and also the roadmap we have developed towards the implementation of the policy, we have clearly stated the roles that states need to play in ensuring that we have achieved it collectively. Furthermore, I also engage many states directly, firstly through Nigeria Governors Forum on 22nd January 2020, where we had a meeting with all the state governors, 37 of them, 36 of them, and we discussed extensively on the need of them to key into the policy and support its implementation. More than 80% of the states during the meeting indicated their willingness to implement the policy. Part of their challenges, some of them complain about digital skills. We have been organizing training for their civil servants or any category of their citizens, as the case may be. So far, we have conducted training on over 20 states. Secondly, some complain about infrastructure. From that meeting to date, through the ministry and the parastatals, we have provided intervention in form of infrastructure to over 350 institutions all over the country, establishing computer centers, ICT hubs. Today, I can say we have over 40 ICT hubs all over the country established by the ministry and the parastatals on behalf of the federal government of Nigeria, and some of them are still in the pipeline. Not to talk of centers in secondary schools where we provide like 20 to 30 and up to 50 computers and all the necessary gadgets required for the training for the students to learn. So we have been doing that. And in addition, some states indicated their interest to have their state policy. So now we are in the process of customizing the national policy and look at their peculiar challenges and provide a state policy for the states that are willing to do that. We have engaged Jigawa state government, also Kaduna state government, Lagos state government, Ekiti state government, Kwara state government. These are some examples of the states that have indicated their willingness to have their own policy or their own strategy in order to achieve that. And I think so far, so good. This is what we have been doing. And finally, based on what my colleagues have said on this platform, their intervention and their corporate social responsibilities are much appreciated by the government and also commended as well. And we are most appreciative. And this is what we have been agitating for. And we encourage them to redouble their effort in providing that. Government appreciates each and every intervention that may come up from them in any way possible. And but what is most important for them to know, in government, we have our own structure. That structure, any sector you have, the ministry in charge of that sector should be your first point of call. Some of the trainings being conducted, we are not aware in the ministry. And this doesn't make sense. You are a minister. If you are in the ICT sector, whatever you do must be through your supervising ministry, because the entire policy of that sector lies in the ministry. And based on the Constitution of Nigeria, 1999, as amended under Section 147 and 148, the minister in charge of that sector, as in the Constitution, is the one that has been empowered to exercise the power of the president of the country. So because of this, if there is any intervention by any company in agri, that must go through the Ministry of Agri. If it is in mine and steel, it must go through mine and steel. But it doesn't make sense a situation where many corporate social responsibilities are being executed by the companies that we determine and come up with their policies while the ministry is not aware or the ministry is not involved. CSR is a policy, it's a soft law. It's not a hard law, it's a soft law. But in each country you go, there is a coordinating body. So I think from now it will be a good idea, whatever you come up, it is not for you to go and meet another ministry as long as you are in the ICT sector. Your first point of call is the ministry that determines the policy of the sector. I will just give a simple example. During COVID-19 pandemic, many companies in oil and gas, for example, supported government through palliatives and many more through the state ministry, state minister of petroleum. When the issue came up during Federal Executive Council, he was able to make a presentation of what they had contributed. But in ICT sector, many did, but we are not aware. They will go directly to NCDC or to Ministry of Health. Because of this, when the issue came up at the Federal Executive Council, we were not able to defend them and say this is what they have done, because we were only seeing online or on the pages of the newspapers. So now government is providing tax holidays for those who intervene, but we don't have the list. And we are not in any way allowed to compile the list because we are not involved. So whatever you do, as long as your supervising minister is not aware, you should know that your interest will not be protected during Federal Executive Council. And the minister will not be able to defend the interest of the company or the sector during meetings. So it is because of this is key. Whatever you will do, whoever happens to be the minister in charge of that sector, let him be the point of call. You is your gateway to federal government. If you fail to do that, at the end, the result will not be seen, the effort may not be appreciated, and your interest could not be defended based on what you have done for the government. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much to you, Honorable Minister, as well as to our panelists. You've done a great job today. Deepo Faulkner with IBM, Charles Marito of Google, Mohammed Darwish of IHS Towers. Thank you all for your participation today. We're going to be transitioning over to the award ceremony. I know the minister has a very busy day, and we're extremely appreciative of all the time he's giving us. We'll be coming back to him in just a moment for the award ceremony to the 3 finalists, but we'll be transitioning to a video from IBM before we do our announcement of our pitch competition winners. So thank you all today. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for that video. I'd now like to turn back to the minister, who will be giving the presentation of the competition. We'll be starting with the 3rd place, which is actually the 3rd winner, as I see it, working all the way up to the grand prize. So, Mr. Minister, the floor is yours. Excellent. Well, I think the information is coming in to me. I'd like you all to join me in congratulating the 3rd place winner, Tiny Hands, for their amazing work in contributing to jaundice and other activities. As a father of 2 young children, this was always something of a concern to me as a parent. And so thank you all for bringing attention to this vital issue. And hopefully this total package of $10,000 will enable you to grow your company, to build it, to have more of an impact on so many valuable lives that are going to be touched by the great entrepreneurial spirit of the work you're doing today. So thank you very much to Tiny Hands. Really, now the award comes down to who do you announce first, the 2nd winner or the 1st winner, the grand prize. A bit of a challenge. We may have the minister coming back online to announce the grand finalists of the 2. And perhaps, Mr. Minister, what I'll do is tee it up for you to announce the big winner, but the 2 finalists then clearly are Health Biotics and AfriLearn. So, Mr. Minister, if you would be so kind as to announce the grand prize winner and also commend our second place.
Okay, so thank you very much. I had been around, only my camera and I put it on mute, and I only need a minute away, but I was hearing even the time you announced the first one, I think it's Tiny Heart Technology.
Yes.
Is the third position.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Then the second position is Health Botics Limited.
Excellent.
So
Well,
congratulations to the second position. The second place is Health Botics Limited, and he has been supported by $12,000. The total package value of $12,000 only to Health Botics Limited. So congratulations, and thanks to all those who supported the prize. While the first position, can I go to the first position?
Please do.
Okay, the first position is AfriLearn Int Limited. Congratulations to the first position, AfriLearn International Limited.
Excellent. Well, congratulations, and thank you, Mr. Minister, for making those announcements. We know this has been a challenging week for you, but please join the government of Nigeria, the minister, all of our sponsors, and all of our friends. Really an amazing competition. Thank you for putting your votes and for putting your faith behind these amazing startups. I know the ministry is going to spend a lot of time making sure that these 3 finalists find the successes they need, and for certain, each of you should go see your individual ministers as you try to build your programs, a lot on the health side, so we can work collaboratively on that. So thank you again, Mr. Minister, for all of your time today, and again, our condolences to you and your family on your loss this week.
Thank you very much. We are most appreciative. However, I couldn't see the prize of the first place.
Oh, I'm sorry. If we could go back to the first place.
The second position prize has been displayed.
Yes, there we are.
Yeah, thank you very much. AfriLearn International, the total value, package value of $18,000 only. So the total package value of $18,000 has been given to AfriLearn International as the first place. Congratulations to the first, second, third, and to all those who participated in the competition. Congratulations to all of you for participating. Try your luck next time. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Minister. We look forward to partnering with you throughout the 2021 cycle to bring more companies to the forefront. Thank you. Well, congratulations to all of our participants in the over 100 people who submitted their applications and their ideas and their thoughts. They're all with merit. They're all very inspiring. I know that the team that reviewed the panel really had a tough time getting down to just the top 3. And thank you to our audience for participating in today's poll. And congratulations to all of the victors. Really, really amazing work to be had and an inspiration to us all. It's now my distinct honor and my my heartfelt thanks to a friend of the business community, Ambassador Mary Beth Leonard, to round out the end of this session before we move to the panel session and hear from Dr. Guerrero. Ambassador Mary Beth Leonard has been a great friend of the business community. She has been a true friend and a guide for me, a bit of a mentor as we've tried to sort out how do we help companies engage the Nigerian market, and has always been one of the more accessible ambassadors globally, regardless of what country of origin they're in. So, Ambassador, thank you for your friendship, thank you for your partnership, and most of all, thank you for your leadership.
Well, thank you for that, Scott. That's very kind. And may I offer my own congratulations, hearty congratulations, on top of those from the Minister, to AfriLearn International, Health Biotics Limited, and Tiny Hearts Technology. It's really inspiring to see the innovative and practical solutions that the digital entrepreneurship competition winners have developed. These solutions can meaningfully address significant education, health, and societal challenges in Nigeria and across the continent. The work of all 3 winners provides real impact for real people and channeling entrepreneurship and problem solving into saving lives and improving futures. I'm grateful for the opportunity to close the first portion of today's timely and important event. The COVID-19 pandemic has impacted us all personally, and in addition to exacting a very heavy toll on the global economy. Through these tremendous challenges, however, technology has helped us overcome COVID-induced obstacles. It has provided innovative ways to learn, to communicate with family and friends, and to conduct business. It has shown us never before thought of ways to build a better and more resilient future. This year has highlighted the immeasurable economic possibilities of digital technology innovation, particularly in a dynamic country like Nigeria. Digital innovation offers direct benefits to Nigeria's economic growth, and I'm convinced it will be the engine that propels this country's prosperity throughout the 21st century. It is a platform that makes transformation and growth possible across a range of other sectors. ICT tools are key facilitators for diversified economic growth and inclusion. These tools offer new frontiers for success, particularly for small and medium enterprises. Such innovations provide new chances to harness opportunities to align training and education with job creation, helping Nigeria develop a more prosperous future for all its citizens, including women and youth. Already, we've seen a surge in e-learning as education providers take advantage of Nigeria's increasing internet penetration and low data costs to provide virtual learning opportunities for students at all levels. Nigeria's e-banking and e-retail are among the sectors that have leveraged opportunities created by accelerated digitalization in response to the global pandemic. I'm proud that both the U.S. government and private sector invest heavily in free online courses for entrepreneurs and support programs such as tomorrow's Nigeria Tech Summit, the Startup Northeast Virtual Incubation Program, and the Field of Dreams training program. To harness the digital economy's full potential, it is crucial that Nigeria put in place the policy architecture and infrastructure investments necessary to fuel this growth. An inclusive, multi-stakeholder approach is key to building a policy environment that promotes a stable, business-friendly climate for investment and innovation. Nigeria offers a market with phenomenal potential. Seizing the opportunity now to forge the right policy framework, regulatory architecture, physical infrastructure, and enforcement regime will attract companies and entrepreneurs ready to turn innovative ideas into reality. Boosting internet connectivity throughout Nigeria is essential to the digital economy's success, and the United States is proud to support the National Broadband Plan's goal through private sector investment and government-to-government engagement. Just this past year, for example, the U.S. Trade and Development Agency continued its 20 years of support for Nigeria's telecommunications sector by funding 3 projects that will lay the groundwork for quality ICT infrastructure and deliver fast and reliable internet to thousands of Nigerian households using U.S.-based solutions. U.S. TDA support is just one example of the U.S. government's commitment to supporting Nigeria's ability to harness digital technologies that promote inclusive economic growth. Nigeria has a unique moment now to leverage the opportunities catalyzed by the pandemic-driven shift to digital platforms. Today, we join the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the American Business Council in Nigeria in celebrating the self-starting innovators who competed in this digital entrepreneurship competition, as well as those who organized this important digital economy conference. The United States looks forward to continuing to support Nigeria's ability to mobilize the potential of its young and increasingly tech-savvy population and to capitalize on the digital economy's potential to accelerate the inclusive, diversified, and broad economic growth that is fundamental to this country's future. With that, we conclude the plenary session of the conference. And I will now turn the floor over to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce's Dr. Kaveri Yao to introduce today's 2 exciting parallel sessions on enhancing connectivity through trade and cybersecurity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, for the insightful remarks and sustained leadership at the U.S. Embassy. My name is Kaveri Yao. I'm the lead for West and Central Africa program at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, U.S. Africa Business Center. I would like to also congratulate the winners of the entrepreneurship competition and thank all the sponsors and partners for the support. We are now moving to the next part of our program, the parallel breakout sessions. We will be hearing actually 2 very exciting set of panel of experts and policymakers discussing 2 important and complementary issues on connectivity and cyber security. The first parallel session will bring together private sector experts, ATC, American Tower Corporation Standard Charter, and policymakers, NIPC, NCC, NOTAP, to discuss how to enable connectivity to trade by exploring best practices and benefit of cross-border data flow, and how to leverage the African Continental Free Trade Agreement to develop Nigeria's digital economy post the COVID-19. The second parallel session will discuss cybersecurity threats and the importance of building cross-functional team to create a holistic approach that improves cyber outcomes. It will also cover the importance of private sector collaboration and the need to ensure that cybersecurity is not undermined by regulatory fragmentation. So again, you can choose which one you would like to attend. You can also decide to listen to a bit of both if you choose to do so. To attend either of the parallel sessions, click on the box labeled Parallel Session 1 or Parallel Session 2 to the left of this video screen, and wait for the event to begin. After this parallel session, we will also have the closing remarks by the president of the American Business Council in Nigeria. And you can also follow the same steps I just mentioned to attend this session. We'll have a 5-minute break. That break will allow you to grab the food or water, or whatever you want to do. And then again, the parallel session will begin exactly in 5 minutes. So see you soon. If you have any issue, don't feel free to send us the chat email so we can help you get through those different panels. Again, thank you so much, and looking forward to seeing you on the next session. Bye-bye.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Evangelos Raziz. I'm the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for your patience as we set up this parallel session on trade and promoting how trade can enable connectivity of Nigeria. We have joined by a distinguished panel of folks in both the private sector, the American private sector in Nigeria, as well as Nigerian government officials. The purpose of our panel is to really discuss how data, which is the backbone of the digital economy and on which rests the foundation's telecommunications infrastructure, how we can, in light of these rapidly developing aspects of the economy, can use trade agreements and an open trading environment to really help advance digital connectivity in Nigeria. Before we go into our distinguished panel, we would like to do the poll. So we have a policy poll to help inform our discussion. The poll is a question, if folks can put it on the screen, is how can an open trade environment advance connectivity in Nigeria? So if we can take just a couple seconds to set that up and to get a sense of from the audience how it thinks about the specific factors of how trade can impact connectivity. You can select your answer to the poll question, scroll up and click Engage, the Engage button located directly above this video on the right-hand side. From there, you can enter your answer. You will have a few more seconds to register the poll. I see that we have some live results coming in. Let's give about 5 more seconds for the poll. Great, thank you. And if we can close the poll to live voting. Thank you. Well, as we start to calculate the incoming votes, why don't we start our distinguished panel? I will begin first by running through everyone's name and their title, and then we will go to opening remarks. First, we have Errol Ambler Smith, CEO of American Tower Corporation in Nigeria. Enger Asaju, Director of Special Duties Department of the Nigerian Communications Commission. Bola Adesola, Senior Vice Chairwoman, Africa Standard Chartered Bank. Yewande Sadiku, Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission. And Jonas Nziagwu, Deputy Director, the Nigerian National Office for Technology Acquisition and Promotion, or NAP. Let's start with Mr. Ambler Smith. Errol, if you can kick us off with opening remarks.
Thanks, Angelos, and good afternoon, delegates, and to my distinguished fellow panelists. It's an honor for me to participate in the 2020 Digital Economy Conference and to offer a few thoughts from the perspective of a tower company. ATC Nigeria is a leading owner, operator, and developer of wireless telecommunications infrastructure in Nigeria. We are licensed by the NCC and beneficiaries of the MRPC's Pioneer Status Incentive Scheme. So it's great to share the stage today with Ms. Sadiku and the representative of Professor Dambata. ATC Nigeria is a subsidiary of American Tower Corporation, the largest international communication company in the world, and is the US for digital economy in the US-Nigeria Commercial Investment Dialogue, which is co-led by Minister Adebayo and Secretary Ross. COVID-19 has transformed every facet of our lives as our reliance on technology to work, educate our children, communicate with our loved ones become more critical. Also made it unquestionable that communication networks have prevented economic collapse and are a pillar of recovery efforts. Recognizing this, governments worldwide have implemented several measures to support providers of ICT services. The NCC, for example, has facilitated access to spectrum resources and led coordination with MNOs to support free access to information websites such as those of the World Health Organization and the Federal Ministry of Health. During the pandemic, tower companies have been focused on keeping their sites running, ensuring free movement of personnel charged with network maintenance, which has not been an easy task, particularly during the earlier stages of lockdown. As in all crises, the pandemic has also exacerbated certain old concerns, such as the digital divide between urban and rural areas, barriers to the rollout of telecoms infrastructure, particularly in state government level, and beliefs that are not backed by any evidence, like those linking the spread of COVID to 5G. These concerns have called for action by industry, government, and international organizations such as the ITU. It is clear that we can't face the new normal with the same tools and novel policy approaches to address old issues, and new problems need to be put in place. ATC Nigeria stands ready to support this process to help ensure smooth, continuous operations of telecom services in Nigeria, not just in periods of crisis, but also in normal times. Thank you again for having me today, and looking forward to the discussions.
Thank you, Errol. Mr. Enger Asaju from the NCC, could you move on with your opening remarks? Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and good day to all of us. It's evening in Nigeria now. We are running towards the night in Nigeria as we speak. I represent the ABC of NCC, and looking at the statistics of the country, and as a regulator, I think Nigeria is already providing an enabling environment for data utilization and cross flow of information. Specifically, as we speak, if you look at the statistics of Nigeria, we have about over 200 million subscribers, and with a penetration of 151 million internet subscription, giving us equivalent of 45.3% in terms of mobile broadband penetration. All of these are very good statistics upon which investors can leverage upon to do their businesses and promote data flow across the continent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Asaju. Bola Adesola from Standard Chartered Bank, welcome you for your remarks.
Thank you very much indeed, and thank you for inviting me to speak on this panel. So my opening remarks really around enabling connectivity via digital transformation. There's no way connectivity through trade will happen without digital transformation being the pillar for socioeconomic transformation and very central really to economic development in the country and sustainability. In terms of trade opportunities and data liberalization, I read somewhere that someone who was forward-looking that digital data flow will define economic areas as opposed to traditional boundaries. But for digital data to sort of be consolidated and to flow, it's also important that one recognizes the issues and challenges around governance and regulation, and I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about that later. And of course, the introduction of the African Continental Free Trade Area will also enhance connectivity through trade across the continent. But Nigeria cannot do it alone. I believe that Nigeria can provide leadership, though, both in the West African sub-region and across Africa in the digital space to facilitate trade and ensure that it grows and becomes much more efficient. Thank you very much.
Very well said, Adesola. Thank you. Yewande Sadiku from the Nigeria Investment Promotion Commission. Welcome your thoughts as well.
Thank you. Good afternoon all, or good morning all. My name is Yewande Sadiku. I work for the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission, the federal government agency that was established to encourage, promote, and coordinate investments in Nigeria. There's obviously a very close relationship between trade and investment. Most investors lead their entry into markets with trade and then develop into investment. And if the economy manages that investment properly, then they develop again back into trade in the context of exports. The African Continental Free Trade Area is relevant to any conversation on the continent now because it opens up the entire continent, transforms it into one market. So creates new opportunities for trade, but certainly new opportunities for investment. And when we look at the areas in which Nigeria has real competitive advantages and what we have seen, the digital space is a big part of it. I'll call it the digital ecosystem, because entrepreneurs and businesses in Nigeria's digital space have long transformed and crossed the borders onto the continent without the discipline of an African Continental Free Trade Area agreement that then defines the rules of engagement and the like. And given the demography of Nigeria, the large number of youth we have and their nimbleness, I think the leveraging technology to take advantages of Nigeria's full potential is without a doubt critical. So that cross-link between trade and technology, I think what COVID has demonstrated is that technology is not something that is linked to telecoms and IT, but it feeds and drives economies and affects all aspects of economic life. So I would look forward to this conversation about enabling connectivity through trade and the investment opportunities that throws up in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yewande. And Jonas and Ziagu from NOTAP, could you weigh in as well?
Yes. Thank you for inviting NOTAP to this program.
we are established to regulate the inflow of foreign technology, and as it were, digital connectivity and this enhancement to trade is a line of technology that is evolving, which we could see from the COVID effect. And so as a regulatory body, what we are looking at is to see how this paradigm shift in the way of doing business could be captured by a regulatory body as a way of getting processes automated, as a way of defining a timeline for services to be rendered, and as a way of making our clients to know beforehand all our requirements beforehand so that they will be able to respond appropriately. And from wherever they are coming to invest in Nigeria, they would have known beforehand what NOTAP stands for and what NOTAP is doing. I think it's a good thing to embrace this shift in way of doing things as being proffered by digital economy. Thank you, and thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Nziagu. Well, it sounds like we have quite a few sort of common themes that are all emerging from many of your remarks. From Errol's discussion of sort of the critical role that ATC is playing in ensuring that at a time of high network usage, that Nigerians can remain connected both now but also moving forward. From the NCC in terms of its role as a regulator, but also moving up the hardware stack, so to speak, from Standard Charter's view around the need for cross-border services and being able to also reach your clients at a time when they need capital the most at a really sensitive time, as well as the sort of African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which Yewande, I think, so well touched on, and the need to really link the entrepreneurial abilities that Nigeria is so well known for, and to really think about how you can use trade disciplines to really amplify a lot of that messaging. And then finally, with NOTAP's perspective from a technology transfer arrangement. So we have quite a few themes on the table. I am curious, we've already touched on this, but what has the COVID-19 pandemic taught us about digital connectivity? And I guess where does trade fit in here? I know we talk about trade both in a broader sense of being able for foreign investors to enter the Nigerian market, but also for Nigerians and for Nigerian exports of services, of goods, to reach foreign markets with certainty. Be it other African trading partners or beyond. So why don't we start again with Errol, and what has the COVID-19 pandemic taught us about digital connectivity?
No, I think it's taught us a lot. I mean, clearly, connectivity as an enabler. So it's absolutely critical. Actually, one of the interesting stats I heard, or on the main panel a little bit earlier, was the link between digital penetration and GDP growth. The comparison that they found between those globally. So clearly, from our side, the role of a passive infrastructure provider in underpinning digital services is often not fully appreciated or recognized. As a result, some policy responses have not been accurately captured. They have not actually captured the range of actions needed to support, promote, and protect passive infrastructure. Towers, you don't have a tower, you don't have connectivity. Also, that agile frameworks and streamlined regulations deliver the best outcomes in both normal and in crisis situations. COVID has highlighted that burdensome regulation is a deterrent to sustainable, resilient response.
Very well.
And finally, back to sort of the ignorance and misinformation that are intensifying.
Sorry, please go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the final one is how some ignorance and misinformation are intensified during these crises, and how necessary it is to get the research that's been done by the World Health Organization and the likes, out there and public that demonstrates that the misconceptions that people have about but potential health effects of radio waves are misguided.
Yeah, I think that's very well said, Errol. Both on the need to really look to the experts of the World Health Organization at a critical time of public health, but also the linkage between a sound and predictable regulatory environment and the ability of foreign investors to really enter and access Nigeria. And I just want to kind of go and pick up on that and go to some of the poll results. If maybe we can get the poll results on screen very quickly, because I think it really picks on something that Errol had said, which is attracting foreign investment for digital infrastructure development. 33% of the respondents had said that this is a reason why trade agreements are important, but notably, it also says that providing regulatory predictability to the private sector is another important element of enabling connectivity through trade. And I think that really speaks to the fact that it's important to take a look at this holistically, right? I think that is why all of the above, 44% of folks who weighed in said in all of the above approach, because you need both the ability to attract investment in digital infrastructure, you need the ability to transfer data, be it personal and non-personal across borders, but finally, again, that regulatory predictability to the private sector so that it can invest in confidence. So maybe shifting a little bit away from the poll, from the NCC's perspective, how do what has COVID-19 taught you about digital connectivity, and how do you square that with your role as a regulator?
Thank you. The COVID-19 pandemic has taught us a lesson globally, and the lesson it has taught us is to provide alternative platforms for interaction. And I want to also say that the way we do things in the past may not be the same again. We are expected to see more of our future engagements online and through digital platform. And consequently, NCC, as we are aware, is one of the leading regulators for telecommunication services in Africa, at least, and relying strongly on the statistics that I projected earlier on, with over 200 million people. We are developing our broadband network infrastructure to get ready for future challenges that may prevent physical interaction. And accordingly, the Honorable Minister of Digital Economy is in the lead in this particular project to deliver on connectivity to all the 774 local governments in Nigeria. We are also, all of that will also eventually improve broadband connectivity that will provide the alternative platform for physical interaction. We are also releasing some spectrum resources to boost capacity and improve quality of service. Also to provide a robust and wireless platform. It has to be a combination of physical infrastructure and wireless infrastructure. That is what NCC is trying to do. And consequently, with all of this combined, we're expected to see a downward pricing in terms of access subscription. It's expected to be avoidable across the entire country. And also, one of the other critical things that is also necessary is the digitalization of trade processes. And I know that the regulator in charge of trade should be looking at this. All of this should be digitalized. The process should be digitalized. And also, we need to also sensitize our local service providers on the need to embrace all this digital platform, and also to harmonize our coordination. But beyond Nigeria, one good news I'd like to deliver this evening, or maybe in the morning, depending on where you are, is recently an NCC has just executed the cross-border connectivity in across ECOWAS country. So what it means, 2 other countries within ECOWAS have signed. So each member state is signing around So all of this, we also provide alternative platform for data flow and trade investment across within Nigeria and indeed across the African continent. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And you know, now that we've heard from both the hardware, really the backbone, the telecom backbone of digital connectivity, why don't we shift a little bit to services, and financial services is really one of those, you know, is really the blood pumping through so much of the economy. Bola, how you know, how is Standard Charter really look at how digital connectivity, well, how the COVID-19 pandemic has taught us about digital connectivity? You know, you mentioned cross-border data flows before, and the AFCFTA, you know, would really welcome your thoughts on that, and you know, has COVID-19 made it more important and more pressing to take a regional perspective, as the NCC just sort of touched on?
You know, COVID-19 has been profoundly disruptive, you know, all aspects of the economy, of business, for clients, and so on. And, you know, again, economies have reacted differently. For some, they're better equipped to combat it, and for some, they've struggled. I would say that as a whole, Nigeria has, from the epidemiological aspect, has done very, very well. Of course, there has been pressure on networks as a result of, you know, work from home, both for, you know, financial institutions, for clients, and so on. And you know, the country having to balance between either halting the economy and, you know, having you know, businesses suffer, or reopening the economy and then having, you know, health issues. Overall, what we've seen is that there was, you know, obviously an initial setback, because the traditional methods of banking and providing financial services are face-to-face. But with the advent of COVID, we found that we actually can still run our business with our clients using other media, and the main one being, you know, internet and connectivity. We've also found that it's the sort of the COVID has kind of triggered the acceleration of a digital transition. You know, better digital skills, both for, you know, financial services companies and for our clients as well. And overall, I would say that it's increased efficiency and even connectivity, where before you had to actually go, you know, physically to a client. Now, you know, you can speak to a client at any point in time and have conference calls and so on and so forth. But I would say the most important aspect is that it's also bringing about innovations in trade, in payments, in transactions, products. Standard Chartered has a venture capital investment company called Standard Chartered Ventures, SC Ventures, including having an Africa hub in Nairobi. And one of the companies that we had invested in before was a blockchain company that enabled end-to-end trade transactions electronically, because data was harnessed in one point. And so investments and services like that will now actually come to, you know, optimal use as a result of the fact that, you know, we just have to be digitally connected with our clients. Even in Nigeria, you know, trade is enabled electronically now. So it's e-forms, which are, you know, the documentation that are required for trade, just as the previous speaker has said. The other thing is increasing investments in technology platforms, trying to, you know, think ahead of what other black swan event is likely to happen to cause a disruption in our business. Again, we can't wind back. We have to plan ahead. So, you know, like I said earlier, I mean, the kickstarting next month, next month, January, of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, I think will again facilitate increased digitalization of trade. And in fact, COVID will, you know, hopefully enable that to happen quicker, so that we have, you know, data across the continent in terms of trade flows, in terms of where the clients are, and just, you know, general enhanced efficiency. of course, like I said again, there will be some challenges. Where is the data stored? For example, what's the integrity of the data? What are the standards? What are the regulations, and so on? But for us as a financial institution, it's been a wake-up call to accelerating our own plans and indeed to ensuring that we're there to support our clients who trade not just within Nigeria, but cross-border, across the continent and even beyond Africa as well.
Very well said. And, I think maybe just taking a step back, hearing both Errol's words and yours, it really, I think, underscores how so many chamber members and member companies have, seen the difficulty of the pandemic and have really risen to the occasion, both not only in terms of ensuring business continuity, but seeing this as a time to double down on digital transformation and to innovate. When you're dealing with challenges like COVID-19, it really forces you to innovate. And that is certainly what I'm hearing. Why don't we pivot? Because the Nigeria Investment Promotion Commission has such an interesting mandate in promoting investment, serving as an advocate for the business community. Would really love to get your perspective, Yewande, on what's been said, but also what the pandemic has taught you and mission about activity.
Evangelos. Thank you, Evangelos. I agree with the comments that have been made. I mean, COVID has accelerated the infusion, I would say, of technology into all aspects of life, and there are many things that would not be the same. But we also see from COVID that it has changed the investment landscape. So it's demonstrated. I mean, if you layer on the protests that happened in Nigeria after COVID, if you layer that on with COVID, it demonstrates the need to, in the context of investment generation, think of investments that have a high social impact, that have a high job creating impact, and investments that, and that we need investment-led growth to drive, the developments that Nigeria requires. Sadly, COVID has had a material economic impact with shrinking economies and profits of many companies. I mean, there have been beneficiaries. We have a slide that shows winners and losers, and people like Errol sit in a space where, they benefited, if you like, from the new terrain that COVID, has brought. But there are many sectors that have suffered materially. What this has caused is, in many ways, investor interest remains reasonable, but investment flows have fallen materially, and the expectation is a 40 to 50% decline across 2020, 2021, and perhaps a pickup in 2022. But the competition for capital is even more urgent because even the typical providers of capital are now looking for investment-led growth themselves. So it underscores for all government agencies a greater need to listen to, in my view, the views of investors, because we need that investment even more than before. And in drafting government policies, I mean, I always take the view that a government policy is only effective if the private sector responds to it the way you expect to. So I'm hoping that we'll have more co-creation in articulating government policies to make sure that it hits the private sector in the right spots and can elicit the correct reaction from them. I'll stop there. So thank you.
Well, very well said, Yewande. And I just want to pick up on one thing you said, which is the competition for capital. And how can Nigeria outcompete other economies for that limited capital? And one thing that comes to mind, again, back to the theme of this conversation, is really looking at trade policy and trade and regulatory policy to ensure that there is a predictable rules-based, open and transparent, collaborative, co-creative, as you said, Yewande, process whereby the government can work very closely with the private sector to ensure that Nigeria is Nigeria is open for business, and we can really accelerate the recovery process and also tap into this longer term of digital transformation and really accelerate that. Unfortunately, our colleague from NOTAP seemed to have some technical issues, so I think we'll have to proceed without him. But being in lieu of time, I just wanted to maybe go very quickly, perhaps one or two word answers. What are ways in which the government and Nigeria, and then the government of Nigeria and the private sector, how can we better collaborate to promote digital connectivity? And I know it's difficult, one or two words, but again, in terms of time, we'll do a round robin of sorts. Errol, what comes to mind if I can start with you?
So for us, I think probably the most glaring and easy one to address is financial incentives to encourage operators to deliver service in underserviced, sort of low population rural areas. Where the operators can't get the business case to work to justify the full investment. So using the likes of the Universal Service Fund to create financial services that will drive the network expansion, that will then hopefully boost the economy in those areas and turn it around.
Mr. Asaju, what is one thing that the NCC can help promote, working with the private sector to promote digital connectivity?
Yeah, thank you. And I think NCC is a regulator, and what we're expected to do is to continue to guarantee the predictability of the regulatory environment and to provide the enabling regulatory guidelines that upon which foreign investment can strive and leverage. And also we also need to collaborate with other sub-regional countries, either within ECOWAS or Africa, to ensure that the project on cross-border connectivity is quickly concluded. But one thing that I want to quickly mention is that looking and noting that global information flow is very, very critical to foreign investment, particularly under this dispensation. It is necessary that all regulators, both for telecoms and indeed other sector, ensure that there is enough security for some of this infrastructure in terms of privacy framework, and that will protect the data and other information that have been transacted under this platform. And there's also a need for all of the regulators to remove unnecessary barriers, to that will ensure that we have free flow of information and data movement. So once that one is achieved, I can assure you that there's going to be greater improvement and efficiency. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Asaju. Bola, what is one thing that the government of Nigeria can do to better collaborate with the private sector? I'm sorry, Bola, I think you're on mute.
Oh, okay. I thought I have to be unmuted. Yeah, okay. Thank you for unmuting me. Yes, I think one key aspect for me is the increase in the digitization of government services. I mean, the need for infrastructure is a given, which also requires collaboration. But I think that, the more government can digitize, whether it's tax payments, regulatory approvals, permits, licenses, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, with industry, also providing the necessary data and accuracy of rendition of data, I think it would enhance the overall efficiency of doing business. So, that in a nutshell, that's one. I have a couple of others, but I think critical is digitization of services. The other one, regulation, but I think our regulators spoke about that, and predictability and so on of the regulatory environment. You cannot operate a business efficiently and effectively or sustainably if regulations are not consistent, are not fair, are not applied. Or rather, if they're applied arbitrarily, then there's an issue. And this is one of the challenges that, particularly with multinationals that are doing business and trade in country, expect. But facilitating, business of companies through enabling digital relationship with government, I think is very important. Thank you.
Great, well said, Bola. And I know those are views that are shared by the broader business community, not just Standard Charter. I think that's good governance and good regulatory practices. Yewande, why don't you close this out?
Thank you. Given my role in government as a bridge between investors and government, I just want to remind not only those who I am lucky to be speaking with this evening, but those who are listening as well, that NIPC was established as a government agency and advocate. We don't have all the answers, we don't know everything. But the agency was created, amongst other things, to initiate or support measures aimed at improving, investor access essentially to Nigeria. Because you guys are sector experts, I would advocate again for more collaboration between the private sector and government. To help all of us, benefit from this promised land, that we're going to as a country. Thank you. We cannot get there without more active collaboration between the public and private sectors.
Well, thank you so much, Yewande, and I'm glad I ended with you. That was so well said. Well, with that, I want to thank everyone so much for their participation, for our esteemed panel. I know that they are all very busy. We are very grateful for your ability to go through with this conversation and to enlighten the audience and us with your views on promoting connectivity in Nigeria and through trade. And with that, thank you again, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. It was great sharing the panel with you. Take care. Bye.
Well, good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for bearing with us as we've managed a few technical difficulties. My name is Vince Fosi. I'm an executive director for cyber policy at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce in Washington, D.C. And I'm very pleased to be joined by my Nigerian and U.S. government and U.S. industry colleagues for today's session, enabling effective implementation of cybersecurity frameworks to strengthen the Nigerian digital economy. We have a great session for you today, and I'm very pleased to be joined by a number of expert participants who you will hear much from, and hopefully a little from me as well during today's conversation. I in particular want to thank our gold sponsors, Chevron and Oracle, for their support for this program. Without you and without our terrific partners in the U.S. State Department and the government of Nigeria, today's program really could not be successful, and we wouldn't be able to do this without you. A few housekeeping remarks before we get started. For all of our participants that are interested in asking a question, please do refer to the chat bar on the right of your video, and we'll make sure to get your questions to our speakers as quickly as possible. I know that we have many people joining today, so I'm really looking forward to an interactive and highly engaged discussion. Before we get to that, and before we get to our expert speakers, I want to introduce our poll question. And I think this is a really great feature to hear from you what is most important to you. Today's poll question is, what cyber threats are you and your organization most concerned about? And some of the options are data breach and ransomware. For those that may not be as familiar with ransomware, it's malicious malware designed to block access to a computer system until a sum of money is paid. Some examples of recent Ransomware campaigns might include WannaCry, CryptoLocker, Petya, RagnarLocker. Those are some notable ones. Number two, business email compromise and spear phishing or phishing campaigns. I think a lot of folks are familiar with phishing, but it's a fraudulent practice of sending emails claiming to be a reputable company or individual to induce another person, the recipient, to reveal either personal information, financial information, passwords, credit card numbers. And malicious actors will use phishing campaigns and social engineering campaigns to induce some sort of fraudulent behavior. Number three, denial of service, or lastly, all of the above. So in order to select your answer to the poll question, scroll up, click on the Engage button located directly above your video on the right-hand side. From there, you can answer your question. I'm told you'll have about 30 seconds to place your votes. So as you can, please do send in some responses so we can get those answers and feed that into our discussion with our expert panelists. So joining our discussion today, and let me just introduce a little bit about the panel first. Cyber-enabled crime like ransomware, business email compromise, spear phishing, distributed denial of service, man-in-the-middle attacks, espionage, trade secret theft are increasingly making headlines across the globe. We see this not only in the United States, but this is especially prevalent during the COVID-19 pandemic. Every day, we in the U.S. private sector are seeing alerts from our government bodies on threats to the healthcare sector, threats to academic institutions, nonprofit organizations that are really trying to do good for the world, and broadly to U.S. critical infrastructure as well. The cost for this in the U.S. is in the billions of dollars, and certainly in Nigeria, it's estimated to cost nearly 75 billion every year. And we'd love to get a few more responses to the poll if that's still up and available. But if not, then we'll close it down and feed that into the discussion. To date, inadequate cybersecurity capacity poses serious risks across industry sectors and across the government as well. In Nigeria, a national cybersecurity strategy and policy was developed in 2014 to specify governance structures and cybersecurity in the country. And we're pleased to be joined by a few representatives of those agencies to hear more about how clear and overlapping or how clear roles and responsibilities are transforming the public-private partnership to defend critical infrastructure and government from cyber threats. NITA, the National Information Technology Agency, has a mandate, and the de facto role is being assumed by the National Identification Management Commission. Further, a Cyber Crimes and Cybersecurity Act was enacted in 2015 to provide a framework for prevention, detection, and punishment of cyber crimes and the protection of national critical information infrastructure, although not yet fully realized. And we look forward to hear from George Marie later in the program on where the government might be moving forward. According to a review by the World Bank, each of these acts, each of these legislations has limited coordination with stakeholders, and would look forward to hearing more about how we might bridge that gap, and especially with the Computer Emergency Response Team and CERTs as sector-specific agencies. I'd like to now introduce each of our panelists for a couple of minutes of opening remarks. And I'd like to start with Dr. Ashifu Inhuwa Abdullahi, Director General and CEO of the Nigerian Information Technology and Development Agency. Sir, thank you for joining us this morning and this afternoon. I'd like to give you the floor for 2 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you very much for having us. My name is Dr. Usman Gambo Abdullahi. I am the Director, IT Infrastructure Solutions at the National Information Technology Development Agency, representing the DG CEO, Kashifu Inua Abdullahi. Just as the name implies, and as has been highlighted by Vincent, the National Information Technology Development Agency has the responsibility of implementing the Nigerian information technology policy and coordinate general IT development in the country. The mandate establishing it was, establishing it was enacted in 2007 and was mandated to create framework for planning, research, development, standardization, application, coordination, monitoring, evaluation, and regulation of information technology practices and activities in Nigeria. So, just as in the mandate that can be seen, NIDA's role, as was identified, is to develop, regulate, and provide advisory services, not just to the public sector, but the private sector as well. And in that process, a number of policies have been developed, and is working very closely with not only the public sector organizations as well as the private sector. And I'm sure during the panel discussion, we'll say more about that. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. And I'd like to now introduce our next panelist, George Marie Tiendeswa, Head of Cybercrime Prosecution Unit for the Nigerian Ministry of Justice. George Marie, good afternoon, sir, and I'd like to invite you for 2 minutes of opening comments as well.
Thank you very much, Vincent. Well, now, I'm Tiendeswa George Maria. I'm an Assistant Director in the Federal Ministry of Justice. And until, well, there's some personnel change in the last couple of hours. I might be moving on to something else. But within the Ministry of Justice and under the Cybercrime Prohibition and Prevention ETC Act of 2015, the Attorney General has been charged with responsibility for strengthening the legal framework for enabling cybersecurity, as well as strengthening the fight against cybercrime. And to this extent, a lot has been done from the coming into force of the Act up to this point. Like you mentioned, there was the first iteration of the National Cybersecurity Policy and Strategy. That is currently being reviewed. So, and that's, of course, being led by the Office of the National Security Advisor in line with the statutory mandate. However, one of the things to note is that because of the linkage that exists between the criminal justice response to cybercrime, it is quite important to highlight the developments that have taken place in terms of capacity building, in terms of law enforcement, training, and placement and coordination to respond to cybercrime. And when we go into the discussion, we will also highlight how that ties in and how it impacts the development and flourishing of a digital economy. Thank you.
Thank you, George Marie. You brought up a couple of really interesting points that I'd love to dive more into: the linkage between critical infrastructure protection, the investigation, prosecution of cyber crimes, and as you might expect, we are having a number of leadership changes here in the United States as well in senior cybersecurity positions. So we look forward to hearing more from you in the discussion. I'd like to now turn to my State Department colleague, Johanna. She is a senior policy advisor in the Office of the Coordinator for Cyber Issues at the U.S. Department of State. Thank you for being here, Joanna. I'd like to now invite you for a couple of minutes of opening remarks as well.
Thanks so much, Vincent. Good day, and thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to join you virtually in Nigeria from my house here in Washington, D.C. Definitely the U.S. is no stranger to the array of cyber threats that we just voted on in the poll. These threats are borderless and frankly can stem from state and non-state malicious actors. Thus, what we've seen is that issues like this are no longer left to the techies to figure out, and it really requires a whole of nation response. So that brings to bear the technical experts, the private industry, and diplomats like myself. As a global partner to Nigeria and a partner to many states in the region, I thought I would just take a few minutes at the opening to share with the audience how the U.S. is positioning itself to assist partners and facilitate cooperation on issues in cyberspace. Up front, I just want to note, the United States is fully committed to strengthening global cyber capacities that protect and promote an open, interoperable, and secure, reliable internet. This is shown in our 2018 U.S. National Cyber Strategy. To that end, the department leverages diplomatic engagement and foreign assistance tools to help states develop a national approach to developing strong cybersecurity. Building cyber capacity is just one way the department engages globally to increase international stability and reduce the risk of conflict stemming from the use of cyberspace, since that is an increasing threat that we're all facing. This is part of a strategy that also includes how international law applies to cyberspace and developing practical confidence-building measures to reduce any unintended escalation. Since 2012, the Office of the Coordinator for Cyber Issues, mine office within the Department of State, has engaged with many states in West Africa. In fact, our very first capacity building event was in Accra, Ghana, for ECOWAS nations, where we convened a whole of government representation from member states to talk about key national approaches to cybersecurity. When we talk about that, we focus on 5 major themes. We focus on the importance of having a national cyber strategy, the importance of strengthening national incident response capabilities and protecting critical infrastructure. We speak to how to combat cybercrime through modernized laws and technical capacities to deal with digital forensics. We promote, of course, public-private partnerships, since that is important. And that can also include the discussion around standards. And lastly, we focus on building a culture of cybersecurity through awareness raising of our publics and focusing on how to build the workforce that we need to deal with issues in cyberspace. In West Africa, we've really focused on those first 3 themes. So focusing on the development and implementation of cyber strategies, incident response teams, and combating cybercrime. We're really pleased that the government of Nigeria has participated throughout such events and has been able to share their rich experience, much like we're doing here today. So on behalf of the US government, I wanted to thank you for inviting us to engage on this topic and for demonstrating Nigeria's leadership and commitment to building an open, interoperable, and secure internet, which we know is frankly the backbone of today's global economy. So through events like this, I'm excited to be able to engage in dialogue and hear from the audience how we can play a role to strengthen global cybersecurity, build our workforce, to defend our networks, and find ways for international cooperation. I'll leave it there, and I look forward to the Q&A. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Joanna. And I think you've touched on a couple of things that I hope Michael will riff off of as well in his next remarks. Our next panelist is Michael Lewis. He is a policy and framework advisor for information security and strategy and management with Chevron Corporation, a multinational energy firm. And in particular, I think, Michael, you wanted to dive into some of the critical infrastructure protection and risk management and scalable frameworks that governments like Nigeria might consider. So I'd like to turn to you now for a few of your opening remarks, and thank you for being with us.
Yeah, thank you for having us, Vince, and it's glad to be here. Again, Michael Lewis. Actually, I have a new title now, which is Cybersecurity and Technology Strategy Planner, since we redid all of our titles about a month ago. So my background, I've been at Chevron about 39 years now. About 20 of those have been in cybersecurity or information protection, as we called it a couple of decades ago. And my focus has mostly been on strategy, trying to understand what new technologies we may be implementing, so the digital transformation elements kind of fall in that area, and also what new cybersecurity technologies we might be looking at. And developing the strategies, we've had opportunities to look at a number of frameworks. Within Chevron, we have adopted the framework, the cybersecurity framework that was chaperoned by the National Institute of Standards and Technology within the U.S. It's kind of hard to say called the NIST cybersecurity framework, so they seem to get mad about the fact they didn't actually write it. It was done by workshops. But that has become the foundation of all of our activities. It is the foundation of our strategy program. We implement our strategies within the 5 functions of identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. We do our communications that way. Our standards and policies are based on that framework. It gives a nice common language that can be used within the company from the executive level down to the technicians, where we can talk about cybersecurity. It also gives us an ability to talk outside of our company to anyone else who happens to adopt that same philosophy. We also have a strong risk-based structure internally within Chevron, trying to make sure that we were applying the right controls to the right risks and not overspending on security or underspending. We've also adopted quantitative risk analysis to try to get a better idea on the risk analysis area as to the actual impacts of the losses. And I guess I would add one new threat on the poll that was missing for us, because one of our major areas would be process control attacks, where someone taking out the critical infrastructure that didn't quite make the poll. That's actually probably our number one risk.
Yeah, and happy to get into that, Michael. Thank you. That's an excellent point. I was going to put blockchain up as well, because it's either a threat or a defensive measure that we like to hang our hat on in the information security profession. But thanks for talking a little bit about the NIST framework. I'm hopeful that our team on the back end can post a link to the National Institute of Standards and Technology Framework for Improving Critical Infrastructure Cybersecurity, a formal name for the NIST framework. And we'd love to have more of a discussion about that when we get into our Q&A section. I'd now like to turn to our final panelist, Uzoma Ekpebelem, Director of Technology for the public sector with Oracle, and I'll invite her for a few opening remarks. Uzoma, thank you for being with us today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Vincent. Good evening, everyone. My name is Uzoma Ekpebelem. Like Vincent has said, I manage and lead the Oracle public sector business here in Nigeria. Oracle has been a leader in security industry for decades, and with its roots, Oracle actually started with working with the CIA by implementing a relational database using SQL. Oracle today provides a comprehensive portfolio of security solutions to ensure data privacy, protect against insider threats, providing secure and scalable identity and access management across different industries. As Nigeria drives towards digital economy and technology adoption, it's even more important to ensure that effective implementation of cybersecurity policy, implementation and adoption. So later on, I'll be speaking a bit about what Oracle has done in collaboration with NIDA to help drive and ensure compliance of government, within government or with government agencies, with a focus on data. So how to ensure that government data, which is considered a national asset, is secure.
Thank you, Uzoma. That was a helpful and useful introduction. I would like to bring Dr. Dunkelley back into the conversation here, and wanted to if you could talk about, sir, a little bit of the regulatory and the framework for protecting critical infrastructure as you see it, and your vision for where the agency will be going in light of these increased cyber threats? And then maybe back to Uzoma after that, if you could offer a perspective of how Oracle is collaborating with NITA on thinking about how industry and government can partner to bring scalable cybersecurity frameworks to the marketplace and into the Nigerian digital economy.
Thank you very much, Vincent, for this excellent question. And I think, as you've said, the most important thing is that of collaboration. And the critical thing, for NIDA is that NIDA doesn't just operate on its own. NIDA works with all relevant stakeholders, just as my colleague has said earlier, and then also Uzoma alluded, we work collaboratively, particularly with government agencies. And you've mentioned the National Cybersecurity Policy and Strategy that we drive from, that is developed collectively, that is anchored and driven by the Office of the National Security Advisor with the contribution of each and every agency of government. George is here, and of course, not only the public sector, but the private sector. So the most important thing is, of course, keying into all the frameworks, and the 2020, 2025 coming on board, is things that is taking all these initiatives on. And for us in NIDA, we focus more on the public sector, protecting the public sector, in addition to providing and developing guidelines and frameworks for information security. We focus on protecting, ensuring that government data is protected. And that is why we strengthen our CERT, the cybersecurity, emergency response team, that especially, focuses on partnering with all other global players and ensuring that threats are identified and sensitized. In fact, in true sensitization, just as Joanna mentioned, most of our team have participated in all those events that have taken place. And we also sensitize and develop those frameworks along those lines. So most importantly is ensuring that you key into the international practices, best practices that are available, and making sure that at least those aspects are taken into consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very heartening to hear of the work that NITA is leading on industry and multi-stakeholder collaboration on risk-based and scalable cybersecurity regulatory frameworks. Zoma, I wanted to come back to you, and if you could offer some examples of where Oracle has directly plugged into the government of Nigeria and offered some of your expertise into informing this regulatory environment.
Yeah. Thank you, Vincent. Like Dr. Usman has said, NIDA drives cybersecurity framework regulation, adoption of it somewhat, but also ensuring compliance. What we did in collaboration with NIDA was more from a perspective of understanding what the security landscape is within government, working with NIDA to understand how secure is government data and how secure is our government database. So we did collaborate with NIDA to conduct what I would call a security audit within the government space, looking at key government agencies. And a couple of things were found in common across these different agencies. One was the inability to be able to identify who the users within the network and the system. Another is the inability as well to perform an audit, who did what and when, which is essential if we're talking about securing government data and government systems. The third was a lot of government data management, database management, database configuration is outsourced to third party, and there are no controls within the environment in terms of who has access to what, how is the data being managed, What are the controls and who's authorized to be able to have access to these data? So this we saw common across some of the key government agencies. And of course, part of what we recommended and are working with NIDA on is around ensuring identity management, who being able to identify who gets access to the systems. Of course, with identity management also comes audit. Who's in the system? What are they doing? When is this being done? And thirdly, as well, is also being able to identify and who are the authorized personnel as well, who are controls being given to. So it's essential from our perspective, and I think from the government perspective, given that data is a national asset, and how is this data being protected? Who has access to sensitive data, and how can this access be controlled? So this is some of what we're working with NIDA on, based out of what the security assessments that we've done across government, and how this can possibly be, how government can then become compliant and, in line with best practice.
Thank you, Uzoma. That was a very helpful overview of your collaboration with NIDA and identifying some areas of improvement within government data management. But I think, especially, this is acute during the COVID-19 era, where we're looking at people that, employees, not just here in the United States, but around the world, that are in remote environments. We're adding how many new endpoints to enterprise networks or virtual private networks, and that needs to be managed in some ways. I wonder if we could pull up the poll with from the back end and see what our attendees are most concerned about. So, what cyber threats are your organization most concerned about? 50% saying all of the above. Data breach and ransomware being the next most concerned, and then BEC and phishing. No one concerned about denial of service. Michael, apologies again that I didn't get an opportunity to add in IT and OT convergence and protecting industrial control networks or SCADA systems. Maybe we'll get that on a future poll in a future conversation. But in short, I wanted to turn to you, sir, and see if you have a reaction to our audience being most concerned about breach, and I wonder if how Ministry of Justice is looking at and investigating these breach incidents. What sort of collaboration, going back to that theme of public-private partnerships, what sort of collaboration does the Ministry of Justice and law enforcement need to pursue cybercrime investigations?
Thank you, Vincent. First off, not just Ministry of Justice, but you see, the thing is, it's very crucial that at the same time, and at this point in time, there's also some work going on developing a data protection legislation. There's a presidential committee handling that. A draft data protection bill 2020 has been issued. Now, it is expected that when this framework is finalized, you will actually have in place a proper coordinating authority that will deal with issues around data protection and particularly data breach notifications and all of that. But in terms of how we can currently deal with this, it is crucial to highlight the fact that government realizes that most of our critical infrastructure is in the hands of the private sector. Now, we also have in place currently the Nigerian Computer Emergency Response Team, the NGSTAR, which to a large extent, and there are a number of other sectoral certs also on stream. Now, that is the focal, that's government focal point in coordinating reporting for data breaches. Of course, it goes without saying that there is the need for law enforcement to also develop the capacity to join with, to work hand in hand with private sector infrastructure owners to drive investigations to the point where we are able to improve attribution. Because one of the key things is that it's important that when these things happen, we should be able to follow through with investigations that get to that enable us attain attribution. That's one of the key things, and government is working in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the panelists, we got a very good question from one of our audience members, which I'd like to invite Dr. Abdullahi to first offer a reaction to. The question is, how does the Nigerian government approach engaging the public to help raise awareness of cybersecurity best practices? And then, Johanna, if you could offer a perspective following that on how the U.S. government might help advance that mission as well across Western Africa.
Thank you very much, Vincent. And I think, yes, it's an excellent question. For us, as part of government, and as was mentioned, it's very, very important that generally citizens are engaged through, awareness creation. Now, as a critical thing that NIDA drives, NIDA does nationwide awareness creation programs and involving the public. And it does that through various means. In fact, particularly the social media. I mean, the role that NIDA played in addressing these issues, of course, just as those things that you have mentioned, the ransomware, business, BC, all those aspects. Actually, in most cases, we produce a number of awareness creation documents, and then including jingles as well, that is, broadcasted across the country, and that is shared across all platforms, both in social media. And then in addition to that, we do, on behalf of government, that is, we do carry out awareness seminars and workshops and conferences as well, all in the hope of engaging the public and ensuring that these best practices are cascaded. Because it's most important in our drive towards the digital economy, the citizens that, of course, are online have to be protected, and they have to be aware of the risks that are involved. So that awareness is key, and that has been taken very seriously, and series of awareness campaigns are being carried out across the country through various media. So that's just what I want to highlight here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Johanna, you talked in your opening remarks about some of the 5 different buckets that the State Department's cyber capacity building efforts are focused into. And this question on, how do organizations raise, or how do governments help raise awareness, I think speaks to one of those pillars, one of those lines of effort. I wonder if you could offer a few tangible examples of where states' efforts are focused in Western Africa.
Yeah, indeed. I think it's important to note that governments definitely have a role in helping raise public awareness, but they don't have the sole role. Like any issue in cyberspace, it really requires the commitment of all of stakeholders. The government's role, what it has is the convening power, right? It is the belly button to the nation. Equally, through mechanisms like incident response teams, they know the threats. They know how the malicious activity is entering into their their nation's networks. And so with that, they can collate and disseminate information accordingly to their stakeholders. But ultimately, it is the stakeholder who knows best how to communicate that to their constituencies. So if it's a private sector company, it's how to get that information to their employees and to their company's partners. Other constituencies, it's local groups, if it's getting information passed through schools, and ultimately those stakeholder groups know best how to communicate information to their users, to their constituencies in a way that can be absorbed and understood. The thing I was just going to note for the sake of conversation is that this topic is one that is important around the world, and that there is an effort underway that is a multi-stakeholder effort in a forum called the Global Forum on Cyber Expertise, where governments like the United States and Nigeria are members, private sector companies are members, as are international organizations such as like ECOWAS. And the purpose of this forum is to convene stakeholders to discuss ways and best practices for building capacities in cyberspace, on cyberspace issues. And one of the themes is just on this, is how to raise public awareness. And so I think that's been a really productive forum that we've engaged with and we've learned a lot from. It's a way that we can, the collective we, can share materials so that governments and stakeholders don't have to recreate the wheel. Instead, they can take material and focus it on how it can be best absorbed, again, to their constituencies. And that's been a really productive way of sharing information, since really the global threats are common in every corner of the world.
Thank you. A very, very good response as well. And I hope we can post a link to the Global Forum on Cyber Expertise in our chat as well. I'm also really heartened to see the quality of questions that are coming in from our audience members. And I apologize, I don't think we're going to be able to get to all of them, but there was one about the draft data protection law, which George Marie was kind enough to post an update in our chat here that there is a draft 2020 that has been shared with stakeholders for input and comments, which will go through the legislative process. So I hope that any follow-up questions we can get to our US Africa Business Council team and share at least our thoughts on the consultation as well. I want to go back to Michael really quick and Uzoma for another question that we got from our audience members. For the private sector, how do organizations improve their workforce's awareness of best practices on cybersecurity? And Michael, we've done probably 100 of these webinars on cyber in the COVID era. With your employees working from home right now, how are you talking to them about risk management and best practices? As phishing is a top threat. How are you guys? How is Chevron counseling your employees on the importance of cyber?
So we have the standard cyber awareness or cybersecurity awareness training, which every employee is required to take yearly. One of the best practices for that type of training is to try to make it personal. To try to talk about how employees can protect themselves when they're using their own equipment at home, because they tend to be more interested in their own data than they are perhaps about the corporate data sometimes. And by getting the right principles at home, those will be reflected back in the workplace. We also have things that we call, which are communications that come out through email. But we also have these things called what we call cybersecurity moments, which can be inserted at the beginning of a meeting. So instead of just going right into the meeting, we would start off with a 5-minute talk about phishing or something, or another threat that had just occurred, and that gets that in front of the employees. We also do the standard phishing tests internally, phishing our own employees to try to drive down the click rates. I know some of our competitors have used things like gamification, where they'll create games that people can play about cybersecurity activities that gets people involved. They can win prizes, and they learn by osmosis by going through those types of techniques.
Yeah, if someone sent me, before COVID, an email, free tickets to the Washington Capitals, I might click on that. Azoma, I wonder if you might offer a couple of thoughts as well. Certainly, an industry best practice standard in some forums is using multi-factor authentication. I wonder if you might be able to offer a few tips that Oracle is counseling its employees on security from home.
Okay, thanks, Vincent. Yeah, I might have clicked on that as well. So we do have with us Bukola Ogunleye. Bukola leads our technical team within Oracle in Nigeria. So Bukola, do you want to take the question?
Yes, thank you very much. Absolutely. Hello, can you hear me clearly?
Yes. Yes.
Hello, can you hear me clearly? Okay, good. All right. So I think from an advisory perspective, because this is what we usually advise our customers to do, especially now that everybody's been working from home for about 8 months now. Constant awareness is very, very key, just like Michael said. The users have to be aware that the security is real. And everybody now is responsible for security. So security is not just an IT thing or the security team's thing. Everybody is now responsible for it. So first and foremost, the organizations have to constantly keep their employees aware. And that is also what Oracle does. There's constant awareness. On the other hand, the right solutions have to be put in place. When Uzoma was talking, she talked about the gaps that we identified when we ran this assessment with NIDA. And these gaps is not just peculiar to government agencies, it's also relevant to the private sector. And that is identity, being able to log in as yourself. And now you mentioned something around multi-factor. So password is not enough anymore with what we're going through today. So we need to also enable multi-factor authentication for the users. So they can log in with their password, what they know and who they are, or what they know and what they have. So use their tokens or use their fingerprints. Good thing, a lot of computers, these their laptops come with fingerprints. So we've seen a lot of our customers in the private sector implementing this multi-factor authentication for their users. So they can ensure that who they say they are is who they say they are before they even start to access what they've done on the system.
Excellent, excellent response, and thank you for really an excellent conversation for the panelists today. I'm sorry that we are running short on time, but I want to invite our government colleagues for a few closing thoughts and start with Dr. Abdullahi for a few thoughts from you, and then George Marie and Johanna to close out.
Thank you very much once again. Really, it's an exciting thing that, just as we're saying, those of us at the opening ceremony have had our Honorable Minister talking about the National Digital Economy Policy and Strategy, and then the number of policies that have been developed. So Nigeria, the document, the National Digital Economy Policy and Strategy is the driving factor. Now, for us to move into this digital world, it's important that everybody is made aware that, on how to protect themselves and how to protect government data, most especially. So NIDA is here to provide the guidelines, the frameworks, and the ensure capacity building across public and private sector. We do that through partnership. And it is important that at least, those that would hope to take this further, can have access to our, various information sources. The website is the easiest thing to get to, and all this information will be there. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, and appreciate your comments, commitments to public-private partnerships and to integrating international standards and frameworks into future regulatory frameworks that might come up. George Marie, I'd like to invite you, sir, for a couple of closing comments as well.
Okay. The first thing I would like to highlight is the fact that we understand that
and it's important for our private sector partners to understand that building the criminal justice response is very important in supporting the digital economy, because when you implement the frameworks, the NIST framework, you do awareness, there will be times when the criminals will still beat those frameworks. Now, from an operator's point of view, it is quite important that within the system, there should be that level of confidence in the ability of law enforcement to at least be the fail-safe net, to be able to investigate, to track down perpetrators and hold them accountable. So a lot of what is required is, apart from creating awareness, it is important that we work with our private sector partners to contribute towards building and strengthening law enforcement capability to deal with this, with cyber crimes as they affect cybersecurity, because they have a direct impact on the digital economy. If you are not sure that when a breach occurs, for example, law enforcement can track down to point zero who is responsible and get them to face the consequences of their actions, then it has an impact on how that person will want to engage. That's one key thing to say. Now, the other thing is awareness. There is a lot of underreporting of cybercrime, and this has a direct effect also on activities within the digital economy space. These are things that we need to work more on. And lastly, there is the need to strengthen international cooperation, because by its nature, both the digital economy and cybercrime are transnational in nature. So it is important to work across countries, work with our partners to ensure that we're able to tackle these issues when they arise. Thank you.
An excellent closing thoughts, and thank you for the invitation to work together. We look forward to working with you and your colleagues, and especially, you bring up an excellent point about reporting information through national certs or through sector-specific information sharing and analysis centers, which are excellent resources to be able to share cyber threat information from private sector to government bodies, to really level up. And certainly wish you all the best in your next career, wherever that may take you. And please keep us informed on where that is. Johanna, I'd like to offer you the final opportunity for closing thoughts.
Well, since I know we're short on time, I'll keep it short, especially since George said much of what I was thinking, which is really, when we talk about cybersecurity, the important factor we all know is the ability to share information. Thus, from our perspective, when we think about policy and strategy, those are just framework documents that allow and facilitate that type of cooperation and information sharing that cybersecurity requires. And this is important for across government agencies, within nations with relevant stakeholders, and outside, be it international partners, private sector partners, and most importantly, the users, the citizens, those of us who are using the technology, which is needed for the digital economy. And so I think just really as I listen to the conversation today, those are sort of the central themes, is that ability to have the means to cooperate across sectors, across agencies, and share the information, because it's only then that we'll be able to really have stronger cybersecurity and reduce the risks that come from these threats.
Thank you, and thanks to all of our panelists, and in particular to Chevron and Oracle for your help with today's program. An excellent discussion. So with that, I want to thank everyone again. Today's program is adjourned, and we look forward to continuing the conversation in the future.
It's clear that massive technology advances and their impact on our daily lives are evident for all to observe. the coronavirus, for all its trouble, has become an accelerant of ingenious innovation and technology adoption into our communities, our workspaces, and personal lives. As expected, it has also brought forward the need for sound regulation that combats the new challenges brought by this change, but also incentivize further innovation and investment. We know that innovation is crucial for the growth of the digital economy. This conference is served as a platform to engage with the policymakers, academia, private sector, and entrepreneurs through our panels to have concrete discussions and derive the solutions we need. It's also noteworthy that this is the third in a digital transformation series on the continent Africa, conducted by the US Africa Business Center. The first two sessions took place in Kenya and South Africa in 2018 and 2019 respectively. Perhaps Nigeria should have been the starting point. Nonetheless, we're here today. It was crucial to hold this in Nigeria since Nigeria is the largest economy in Africa and potentially the largest digital economy. Nigeria also has a huge social and cultural influence throughout Africa. Attitudes towards the use and misuse of technology crafted here have continental ramifications. Amongst others, we have discussed how to combat cybercrime, how the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement enables cross-border data flow and impacts data privacy in Africa, and how digital economy can be a lifeline to our young population. I'd like to end my note with a call to action for all present. You can imagine the impact of what happens if we implement all the recommendations discussed here today. Special congratulations to the winners of the competition, AfriLin, Health Biotics, and Tiny Heart, for your innovation and success. It's been the pleasure of the American Business Council to host this event in collaboration with the US Chamber. And on behalf of the Council, I'd like to thank our sponsors for this conference. Our platinum sponsors, special mentions to IBM, Zenith Bank, IHS Stars, and Iteco Group. Our gold sponsors, Google, Chevron, ATC, and Oracle. And our technical partners, ABC, NITDA, HP, Cisco, and HP by Seletium. Special thanks to the Honorable Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, the Deputy Secretary of State, Ambassador Leonard, Scott Eisner, the DG of NITDA, the DG of NOTA, Ms. Yewande Sadiku, representatives of the state government, private sector leaders for making out time to participate and attend today's event. Thank you very much and have a wonderful evening.